Uh, Director Collier will not be here today, so you will read the preamble, so you can do that whenever you are ready.
All right, thank you. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law under COVID-19 emergency declaration, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during this meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to taking any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you keep your mic on mute and then use the raised hand function before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand function can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raised hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on the particular case via our website and email. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comments on a particular matter, and those are entered into the record. We'd like to call the May 13th meeting, Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Pettit, please call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Bailey. Ms. Bailey, are you there? I see you, but I don't hear you. Adrian, are you here? You're on mute, Adrian.
Yes, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you. Mr. Colicchia.
Don Giancarlo is out of town. He said he's going to try to attend the meeting by phone. He's probably won't be able to do that until mid-morning.
Okay, thank you. I knew he was delayed, but hopefully he can make it in.
Yes, I hope so.
Thank you. Director Collier. Mr. Dreyer.
Here.
Councilman Jones. Mr. Strickland. Mr. Tarasek.
Here.
Ms. Trott.
Here.
Also in attendance today are Carl Brunges, who will be hosting the meeting, Ava Schmidt, our AmeriCorps member, and Stuart Hastings from the Law Department. We're also joined today by Jonathan Bonezzi, who's our newest appointee to the commission. That appointment is not official yet, so he won't be voting today. He'll just be sitting in and observing. So welcome, Mr. Bonezzi.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. We will begin our meeting today with our certificates of appropriateness. Actually, we'll start with welcoming everyone, even in virtual state. We're very happy you could join us. We will start with our certificates of appropriateness. We would ask for housekeeping, and the facilitator controls your slides, so please announce when you would like them to be advanced. We would ask for the first presenter to use the raise hand function so your microphone can be unmuted, and please identify yourself and tell us about your project. The first applicant is roof replacement at the Plaza Suites Apartments at 3206 Prospect Avenue. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function and unmute your microphone and tell us about your project? Oh, Mr. Pettit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, it was a roof replacement at the Plaza Suites. And we presented this project in October. This is just to justify the color. So what I did was I looked up the historical precedent for the building, and I couldn't find, any specifics on the website of the Landmarks Commission. So I went and did a little bit of research in knowing that the architects that built the building, this one and several around Cleveland, were Eastern Europeans. And I'd kind of find that on the web in lots of red roofs. Then I look at the several roofs in Cleveland, a couple of big churches that also have red roofs, in apartment buildings. So there were 3 colors offered from the company, and this is the one I thought would not turn pink as it faded. It would be more like terracotta color. That's it.
Thank you. Do we have feedback from the local committee on this?
Madam Chair, this did not go back to the local committee. They initially disapproved the roof replacement. This was tabled by the commission on October 8th of last year. We asked the applicant to return with images of other examples in the area that showed a weathered condition of the same material. We also asked them to look at potential other color options. There wasn't a clear consensus from the commission at the last meeting, but we did ask that they come back and show us more evidence. Ms. Katz, is your contractor with us today?
He called in, but I don't know, it wasn't working on the phone earlier. I couldn't get in. I don't know. He told me he was in. I don't know if he can hear. Okay.
This is David
Yeah, this
from
is David.
Quality Roofing.
Okay, excellent. Go ahead, Don.
Go ahead. So that's where we are. The roof was replaced without review or initially. We're here today to make a final determination on the appropriateness of the material and the color for the building. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Questions or comments from the commission? I only see Don's hand up, so are there others? Okay, well, I'll start us off and then others can add in. I think on the last presentation, we did talk that, in a typical, this architectural style typically does not have this color roof on it. In this material, it is very eye-catching the way it sits above, the adjacent buildings. And the color is, obviously in the sun becomes a little bit more, becomes brighter than, the sample shown in the brochure. I'm still wavering if this is, appropriate or not, for this installation. Based on the historical pictures, it looked like this was always meant to be a darker roof. But I think this is the only historical picture we have, right, Carl?
That is correct. This is the only one I was able to find.
So it's
And we think that it would have
okay.
originally been a slate roof, but then it has been a asphalt shingle roof for at least 20 or more years.
Got it. It's not the material, I guess, I have as much of an issue as with the color, because this building sits so much taller than its neighbors. Other questions or comments from the commission?
I think hold on for a minute.
We can hear you, Adrian. Yep, go ahead.
I remember from the last member meeting that we asked if we can somehow paint or tone down the color, with the existing material already installed. Did the owner or the contractor research that? You research that?
As you can see from the photos, the ones from Europe and the ones in Cleveland, the photo of the church on, how do you change the page here? The church,
The
that one,
facilitator,
San
Carl,
Timothy.
yeah,
You
go ahead.
see San Timothy? You see how the roof looks different in the photos? You can never tell how the roof is going to reflect, and we know that the color is made with our eyes, and people perceive colors differently. But there was a precedent that you had allowed red roofs with yellow brick in historical buildings, and you can see by the photographs that pretty much every time you take a photo, the roof looks different. So we're never gonna please everybody. I chose the metal roof because I saw the church, 2 churches next to me, they have metal roofs. The Union building that has been recently refurbished also was allowed a metal roof. So other than that, I don't know how you can say no to this, pretty much.
Well, we do review projects individually and based on the merit of each project. So precedents we do not look at precedents, as a group. We look at each project and the merit of each project architecturally. Mr. Bonesi, do you have questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Julie. I wanted to comment on the color and kind of go backing off of yours, which is that as an architectural style and the placement of Cleveland, the precedents that you looked up in Europe are places that traditionally have over 70 to 80% sun, and it's a very warm kind of light.
80% what?
They're locations that get traditionally like 80% of the day is filled with lots of very warm light from the sun, the quality of sunlight, which led architecturally to these kind of red roofs mixed with these very warm colors. I think using that precedent in an environment such as Cleveland, which is not of the same environment and weather and lighting conditions, which is a much duller light. Not saying Cleveland is dull, but the light in Cleveland is naturally duller. So this very red roof is going to stick out just because of the natural lighting conditions in Cleveland. So I second Julie's concerns about the vibrancy of the red roof.
Okay, so the roof and St. Timothy and the church on the west side are like 400% larger in the red. St. Timothy is 1/10 of a mile from me.
That is a facility that I am not familiar with, and I don't know if that actually sits in a design review districts and/or landmarks commission. So I don't know if they actually received approval for that roof color. Don, do you have any feedback on that?
Well, I'd just like to point out, I mean, St. Timothy has a red roof. And that was probably approved by the commission. However, it's not a metal roof. I believe it's an asphalt shingle roof. I'm not sure about the church on Detroit Avenue, which, you know, was a new construction. It's a new building. I don't know what the roof material is, but it does have a red roof. The only one I can think of that we've approved recently is that house on Franklin Boulevard, where we did approve a standing seam metal roof in red. So, you know, I think we have, I mean, we have two issues here today. One is the material, which is existing, which is on the building now, and the color, and I think those are our two charges today to determine if they're appropriate.
Thank you for refocusing us. Mr. Tarasik, you have questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. And just so I'm clear, am I understanding that this project has come before us before? Is that correct, Ms. Trott?
Yes, it came to
And
us
so-
last year.
Yeah. So I'm not certain if it was, and I apologize, I'm not certain if it was this project that I made the comment on, but I do recall was if it wasn't this one, it was a similar one where the contractor was here. And I think the question that I posed at that time, and again, if it wasn't this project, I think it's still an appropriate question. The question was, are there any examples of this type of material, this type of color, and how it wears over time and what we might expect to see how it would look over a period of time? And again, I don't recall if it was this project or not, but I think there was a contractor that was here that indicated they had done projects like this before, and that they had examples of what this type of material and type of color would look like over time. And again, if it wasn't for this particular project, I think it's a question or something that I would like to see how this particular typically wear over time to see what the color would end up being.
So yes, I believe this was the same project, and I did a lot of research with the manufacturer of the roofing material, and typically any kind of metal will dull after, as it ages. And I was hoping to get some pictures of the same material, same color, 10 years old or such, but there was nothing. Most of it was private residences, and we didn't get permission to take pictures, and they were set back from the street. But so I wasn't able to get a photograph, but typically they do, as they age, they lose that shine, which is, I think, one of the bigger problems is, from what I understand, is if the sun hits it just right, it's, it really brings out the color and the glossiness. And that will definitely, that will dull as it ages. But there's no hard answer that I could find that says that will happen in 2 years, will it happen in 5 years? It will, gradually over the next 10 to 20 years, it will definitely dull in color. Not necessarily color, but the sheen.
So forgive me for asking this question because I just don't know the answer to it, and I'm curious. Is there anything that can be applied to that material now that would dull it or that might accelerate the dulling, if you will, of the color?
So I didn't ask about dulling the color. I asked about painting it, and the answer was highly not recommended in the first few years. Normally a roof doesn't get painted, metal doesn't get painted until it's, aged, maybe even possibly started rusting. And it's harder to bond to a shiny surface. Not impossible, he said, but he would highly recommend waiting a few years. On dulling it, I did not ask that question. That is a question I should have asked. But I don't know if there's anything out there that would do that.
This is Teresa Katz. I don't know if you're familiar with Prospect Avenue. At the end on 40th, there is the cleaners. What is it? That's Cleaners.
Yes.
That's a commercial building, and it's, looks like from the 80s. And they have a red roof, metal, and it's getting pink. So I didn't want this one to get pink. I'm confident that as it ages, it's gonna look more and more terracotta because it has more yellow in it. There is a photo there of the material that we use, and there are 3 choices of colors. So I chose the one, with the most yellow, so it won't turn pink. See, there's the dark red, and probably the cleaners have the bright red, and now it looks pinkish, and I didn't want it to look pink. And the dark red, it's probably close to that. So the burnt red, I thought it would age nicely and turn into a more of a terracotta color. The truth is, I get inspired by the roofs around me, and I saw most of the churches and the neighbors had metal, Then I thought, what color? And I'm so sorry this didn't go before we install it.
Understand. Let's continue on with commission questions or comments. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have to acknowledge that the applicant did choose a more sustainable and more expensive option for the roof replacement on this building. I'm not sure what happened. We should have been seeing this project before it was installed, and I'm not sure where the failure was on that. I don't know if the applicant had to pull a permit with the city to install that roof, and if it should have come up at that time that this roof needed to be approved by us. I'm not sure what happened there, but now we have the unfortunate situation of this roof being on the property and it not being totally appropriate for the area. We have a couple of other items on the agenda there's a window replacement that's already been done, that's coming to us after the fact, and then we have a window replacement and a new roof that's coming to us in the proper manner before they're installed. You know, I'm really at, bind here. I'm not sure what to do. I hate to have a precedent of approving these things after the fact, which I think would discourage other applicants who come in with their projects before they're built. At the same time, I acknowledge that this owner seemed to really think out the choice, whether it's the right choice or not, and did spend the extra money for a higher quality material. So I'm really torn on this one. Thank you.
I agree. Other questions or comments from the commission?
The arrows that's being pointed, is that the color that's on the roof right now?
Yes. I think she was asking, the the samples with the arrow that is pointing out to the barn red. That one. Yes, that's the one that is on the roof, which I explained, as it will age, it won't turn pink like the other two choices. And that will be the issue if we repaint the roof, I don't think it's practical or feasible for me to do that. It's hard enough to keep up with the maintenance when 120-some-year-old building.
So my question for you, I'm assuming that was your contractor that was talking earlier. He was saying it's not a good time to paint. So if you paint later, will you go to staff and discuss the color, what color you're gonna paint the roof at that time?
No, the material comes in that color. It's a special protective, let's call it shield. So it won't, for this kind of weather. The color is built in. Anything to do with the roof is just gonna damage it. And I don't think I can afford it.
Well, what I'm hearing is that the majority of the commission is not aligned with the color. So I think we're trying to create a solution that is not requiring you to agree to a solution, that is not requiring you to remove the roof, but gets the color to a point that we as a commission, the body, can feel is appropriate for this area of the district. So
I
are
only
you?
heard from one person. Only one person talk about the weather. And there is one photo with typical Cleveland weather, and the roof doesn't look red. The one where you see the front of the building with the gray car parked outside. No, the other way. Keep going. Where is it? Yeah, keep going.
Is that the beginning of the presentation, Carl?
Is that, I think, 2 more pages. That one, do you see the photo on the left? He mentioned the weather, okay? That's how it looks with typical Cleveland weather. You see the blue and gray car?
Yes.
You can't tell what color is. And you, at the beginning of the meeting, you asked if anybody from the community made any comments, right? You mean like
Um,
somebody complained, oh, somebody put a new roof and I don't like the color. Is that what you were implying?
I guess I don't know who was implying that or if it was implied. We as a commission, which is the body you're in front of, it by the statements that I'm hearing from Ms. Anderson, Ms. Bailey, Mr. Tarasik, and Mr. Benozzi, sorry, I'm going to say it wrong, so I'm not used to your last name yet, Benozzi, is that, you know, I think we're not aligned on the color of this roof based on where it's installed in the historic district. So I think the options are that I am hearing is that and please, if there's anyone on the commission who disagrees with what I'm saying, please speak up, is that I think there's two options that I see to move this forward. We can either come to a compromise and you can agree to paint the roof, on which, doing just a quick research as I'm sitting here, it says that you can paint metal roofs within 6 months of, or after the roof has been installed for about 6 months, so that the metal can stabilize and have a little bit of wearing to it. So you could either paint the roof, or if the other option I see is that we can vote on this and disapprove it, and you would need to remove and replace the roof.
Okay. Well,
So
I
I
can
think-
say your suggestion of painting the roof, it kills all the purpose of using the most renewable material on earth. And now we're just gonna use paint and contaminate more. I mean, the reason I went with the metal is because it's recyclable. Okay, by painting it, we pretty much taking years away from the roof. Like I said before, it's really hard for me to keep up with the maintenance. And I went to a great deal of, I had to borrow money to do the roof. It's because of the pandemic that we're in this situation that the permit didn't go in time. The offices were closed. I'm sorry about that. Now, if I had to do anything to that roof, I will probably lose the building because I have 30% less tenants here. And the city raised the occupancy tax. The property taxes keep going up. The water, the gas, the sewer, the trash, everything. I mean, I don't think it's a sore. I don't think it's a sore. I don't think it looks terrible. I just hear that you don't like it. I don't hear any justification because you have approved metal roofs all around me. I only hear I don't like it. In the weather, you have the photo there. That's how it looks most of the time.
We understand these times are trying and all, and as Ms. Anderson mentioned, we commend you for using a sustainable material because that is the direction we do want to go in our city and communities. But I think we do need to come to some agreement on this. Mr. Benozzi, do you have additional comments?
Yes, I did want to first off commend you for, improving the quality of the roof over an asphalt shingle roof and choosing a material that would be good for the building. But I did want to give a comment is that you said, it's just how we're feeling about the architectural style. But in the historic photographs that you supplied, the original roof was a dark slate roof, which was then replaced with a dark asphalt roof, which was admittedly, in my opinion, probably the wrong decision of how to replace an original slate roof, but they kept maintained the aesthetics of the building, which was a kind of cream yellow brick and a dark kind of top roof to the building. So I just wanted to give some clarification from an architectural design standpoint. It's not just, I don't want you to think it's just that we don't like the red roof. That was my comment. Thank you, Ms. Trott.
Thank you. And just to be clear, from the contractor standpoint, have you worked in the city of Cleveland before? I apologize, I don't have the contractor's name in front of me.
David Byler.
Mr. Byler, are you still with us
Yes,
today? And have you worked in the city of Cleveland before?
I'm sorry, I'm here now. My phone cut off there for a sec. So I missed the last couple minutes. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Have you worked in the city of before and doing roof replacements?
In the Cleveland area?
Yes.
I have. I am not familiar with the historical district at all, but in the mainly surrounding areas of Cleveland, we have done roofing before.
And do you typically pull permits, for the roofs and wait for the permits to be approved?
Yes, we typically. In this case, I think as Mrs. Katz mentioned, we did submit the permit. I don't have the exact date in front of me. The offices were closed, but they were emailed in. Then I think it was 2 to 3 weeks before I got a response that we can't email it. So I sent it in with hard copy by mail. And obviously the mail was slow at the time, and we didn't hear anything back for quite a while. By that time, the roof was installed.
Okay, thank you for reminding us that. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It does sound like there was some issues with City Hall and the permitting process, which sort of leads me to give the applicant the benefit of the doubt here. I think a lot of people own properties in historic districts and are not aware of that the restrictions that accompany maintenance on a property in a historic district. So, if the permit went in properly, in a timely fashion, the way it should have, the city could have gotten back to them and said, hey, there's this extra step here, and you have to make sure that your roof is approved by the Landmarks Commission. And I'm not quite sure where the failure happened, but obviously it did, and could have been with the applicant, could have been with the city, could just be things are just muddled with the pandemic. But I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt and let them move forward with the roof. And at some point, maybe 20 years down the road, does need to be painted. Then they can look at the color at that point.
No, those are great points, and I think that's this is a trying times for all of us, and it's unfortunate that it's caught in between or in this situation because of either the process not being able to go through in a timely manner because of COVID and the pandemic and so forth. Those are great points, and thank you for bringing those up. Other questions or comments from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Would someone like to put forward a motion?
You know, I will move that we approve this as presented with the stipulation that when the time comes to, you know, coat or paint the roof, that they come before us to approve the color. And again, that might be 20 years from now, it might be a different owner at that point. But, you know, I can see the hardship in this situation. I'm not happy about this roof, but, you know, I understand that this owner may need to use this money towards maintaining this lovely historic building in other respects. She did put a high quality roof on there. The color's unfortunate, but you know, given the in light of the situation with the permitting process and the pandemic, I reluctantly move that we approve.
Thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
This is Alan. I'll second.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further just on discussion? Mr. Tarasik, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I just do have one question. I think this is maybe directed to Mr. Hastings. Is this something that we can affix to our approval that at a certain point in time in the future that this be painted? I guess my concern is that, to me, that seems very ambiguous. And we have a concern right now about the color that is there. If we are all assuming that it will wear over time and it will wear to a color that we hope is more appropriate. But it seems very ambiguous to me that as the motion is presented, that when the time comes that they come before us to paint it, I guess the ambiguity of that is I guess concerning to me. Whether or not we can affix something to our approval that is that ambiguous or that far out in the future. I guess maybe that's a question for Mr. Hastings. And then the other concern I have is the applicant has indicated that it is very costly at this point in time to upkeep this particular piece of property. My concern would be that if indeed we can be ambiguous in having the applicant come back at a time that's uncertain and unspecified to go ahead and paint the roof, what assurances do we have that at that point in time that's going to be something that the applicant's going to be able to afford to do, given the fact that we do understand that the upkeep of this building, at least from the applicant's comments, is very expensive. I guess my concern is the ambiguity of we'll approve it now, and then at some point in time in the future, which is unspecified, this applicant or another applicant, or not, sorry, not this applicant or another owner, will come back to us or come back to staff for approval of a color. I guess those are my comments, and maybe Mr. Hastings can help me understand if this can actually be done. We can put these stipulations on this particular applicant.
I'm sorry, can I say something?
If you could let Mr. Hastings, who is our representative from the law department, speak first, please.
Yeah, my response to that, Mr. Tarasik is correct. Normally, we wouldn't put on a future condition like that. Either we are, normally we approve or disapprove. Although I will say, under certainly current law, any external change to this building, because it's in a landmark district, would have to come to us anyway. Anyone who's planning to paint their house, particularly if it's a different color, does have to go through landmarks to do that. So I would interpret that condition as sort of a reminder to the applicant, don't forget to get permission ahead of time next time.
If I may, though, that condition is not binding then on the applicant. I think all we're saying is that at a point in time in the future, if they decide they want to paint it, they do have to come back to us. But it doesn't, at least in my mind, and please enlighten me if I'm wrong, it doesn't require the applicant to come back and paint it at a particular point in time. That's left up to the applicant's discretion 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as to whether or not they want to paint it. But us putting on a condition that says 20 years from now, come back and paint it, we cannot make that a condition of this approval, that they do come back at a point in time in the future. We can only indicate that if they do and if they want to paint it, they will come back to us. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, you do. That's right. We can't make her paint it. If we approve, we can't then say, and you must paint it 20 years from now or 10 years from now. The only thing we can remind her is that, and whenever you plan to repaint it, to maintain it, you must come back to Landmarks Commission for approval.
Thank you.
Or any improvements on the exterior of the building that alters the current existing character. If you're replacing material, painting windows, those all need to come back to Landmarks. Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
Can I make a suggestion?
Right now, we're in the commission's final concluding thoughts. So if we can stay focused on this so that we can, continue to move forward. Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
I also wanted to, Ms. Trout also made a comment on what I was gonna say. Like, that's also including repairs, that's also material changes. Like if the weather for some reason made damages to the roof, they also have to come back, so things like that. So, yeah.
Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, if you would please repeat the motion as it was presented by Ms. Anderson.
Is that Don or myself?
It's-
Sorry. Go ahead, Don.
It's a motion to approve as presented, with an understanding regarding the circumstances, and some regret that the work has already been done, but it's a motion to approve as presented, and it was seconded by Mr. Dreyer.
So the items that I would just say that are noted, if we could note them clearer, that based on the circumstances of the pandemic and the City Hall being closed, that this is being approved only because of those circumstances. So that, once again, we're not in a precedence that we are going to approve these just based on this is only getting approved as presented because of the circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic and the closure of City Hall for a period of time when the work needed to be completed. Any further discussion or questions?
The comments we just made just only let the applicant know that they understand that they have to come back later in the future. We don't have to add that part in the motion, correct?
We do not need to add that, into the motion because they do need to return for any additional work on the exterior of this building. Not just related to the roof, but anything on the exterior of the building. That's the requirement of being in a landmarks district. Any additional comments by the commission? Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
No.
Ms. Trot.
No.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 3-2, so it's approved.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Katz, as we mentioned, we appreciate your investment in the city, but in the future, please come to us first before you make any additional changes.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a suggestion because when I check the Landmarks Commission page on the building, I would suggest that you can make a note what type of roof is appropriate and what color, and also as for the windows, because I know there has been an issue before. That way, because I look in there and that's why I couldn't tell. So if you put a note there what's appropriate, then it would have been easier for all of us. And I appreciate that this commission exists. And thank you.
We appreciate your comments and suggestions, and we'll definitely take that into account so that we can simplify this process for everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. We'll move on to our next applicant, window replacement located at 1454 West 58th Street. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function, and you can unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Madam Chair, the applicant was unable to be here today. This is a
In
case that was
totality?
tabled. This was tabled on March 25th because we didn't have photographs of the final installation of the windows that were installed without permits. So we were back here today to look at the final application, but the applicant isn't here. I guess I would suggest that we table it to a future meeting.
Okay, excellent. Do we need to take a vote, or can we table it since they're not here?
I think we should take a vote.
All right, would someone like to put forward a motion to table?
I move that we table this applicant for a future meeting because they are not in attendance.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Ms. Bailey, you're muted.
Yeah,
There you go.
yes,
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasek,
Yes.
Ms. Trotz.
Yes,
The case is tabled.
excellent. We'll move on to our third applicant, located at 3104 West 25th Street, signs for the Esperanza Access Centers. Could the applicant unmute your mics and announce yourself? And before we begin that, Mr. Hastings, you had your hand up.
Yes, Madam Chair, I wanted to remind the commission that since it's been tabled once, it cannot be tabled a second time. So at the next meeting, it will have to, it's been tabled twice now. So at the next meeting, a vote has to be taken, yes or no.
Excellent. Thank you for that reminder. With new commission members, feel free to continue to remind us so that we can bring Mr. Minozzi up to speed. And then we'll move on to our third applicant. With that being said, we're still good with that being tabled. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function, open your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project? Welcome, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. I'm Eric Wheeler, and I'm here with my coworker Dana Leidick, and we represent Cuyahoga Community College. And our request is for official approval of the revised signage at the Esperanza Inc. Location. We had met with the Landmark Commission prior, and in our latest round of edits, incorporated several of their recommendations, which seem to take into respect some of the existing signage in the building, as well as the regulations on the amount of signage that can be affixed to the glass. So I think with our latest round, we've addressed all of those concerns, and we're hoping the commission will grant us final approval.
Could you tell us where these signs are on the building for context? Is it
Yeah.
all locations or it's just certain ones?
If you go to the second page, well, actually, if you stay here, if you see in the photo in the upper left corner, there are a couple of graphics for the Hispanic Alliance, which is difficult to see at this scale, but they're kind of burgundy with like a yellow swoosh. So those two windows have been updated to reflect the Esperanza and Access Center branding. So those graphics are specific to that lower left two windows. The opposite side on the right are the Seeds of Literacy, that we don't have any affiliation with, but just for a sense of the neighboring businesses within the same building. So the lower two left window areas are what we're speaking about.
And could you just tell us a little bit, like in a elevator speech, of what the Esperanza Center is?
Yeah, Esperanza caters to the Hispanic community there, and it's basically essentially to build confidence and skills that youth need to become thriving leaders. And where Cuyahoga Community College has an interest is we've partnered with Esperanza to open an access center, which essentially allows us to offer classes right at Esperanza, kind of meeting the people where they live versus having them come into Tri-C. And a lot of this happened, pre-pandemic. Since then, a lot of access to education has become virtual, but we still find that there's a lot of merit in face-to-face communication, and recognize that not everybody has, say, broadband connections or even, the hardware to have a virtual education experience. So what our graphics on the front represent both Esperanza's mission and the Access Center mission. And one thing I just want to reiterate our apologies from the previous meeting was we did not recognize the need for permission to affix these graphics. We were later told that the landlord has the onus on them, but it did not come up in any of our conversations. So we had proceeded to fix the initial graphics. It was brought to our attention that they were not within the proper guidelines. But if you go to then the second page, it'll show the changes that we have made. If you want, I can spell those out in some detail, but I didn't
That would
want
be
to
great.
take over.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be great, just so we can understand.
Great. Okay. The two upper signs where you see the Esperanza logo, our initial layout completely covered those gold aluminum backings with white vinyl. And it was expressed to us that the completely covering those lost the connection to some of the other graphics around the building, specifically Seeds of Literacy, which exposed that gold border around their logo sign. So what we've done in this revised frontage is we're going to propose removing some of the white vinyl to then re-expose that gold framework, which is underneath it, which will be more in line with some of the other graphics on the building. If you go then down to the transoms, the Esperanza, actually, I believe the previous occupant, which was the Hispanic Alliance, has flags of many nations that's hung up in those windows. Not depicted here, but it was also a recommendation from the commission that those be removed to open up the sight lines as well. If you could go down to the right, where you have the Esperanza mission and the Tri-C Access Center mission, that area we had been given verbal approval on, as there's a significant amount of the glass exposure that allows clear line of sight from outside and inside. Where more of a significant change has happened is going to be on the left. If you were to go back one slide, you'll see how the window graphics with the text were all encased within color bars. And those were graphics that were picked up from Esperanza's branding. But inadvertently, that obstructed the clear line of sight through the windows. So rather than have the white text on the colored bars, if you then go to the next slide, we've removed those color bars and just did the text in the appropriate colors. Again, increasing the amount of sight lines through the glass. And also you'll see the icons that are on the narrow window. We ensured that the white vinyl that was around each of those graphics has been removed. And so again, opening up the sight lines. The one graphic that is pending and is probably likely to not happen is you'll see the enter at center of building that is initially proposed to be affixed to a doorway there. The folks at Esperanza had issues with folks kind of loitering in that area and felt that there was a not safe or ideal situation there. So they had their landlord and them boarded that area up. So it is currently closed solid. It was proposed that maybe a plexiglass solution could go into place instead of that. If that were to happen, then we would then revisit that area and propose affixing those graphics onto that. The latest I have heard is they are looking at an alternate solution to that, which may be something that's maybe more of a wrought iron or something that falls within a more historical appearance. But as it stands now, that is not part of our presentation until that has been finalized. So with the exception of the X'd out box there that shows the door, the other areas with the revised frontage is what we're hoping to get final approval. So again, we've addressed the concerns that the commission brought to our attention, and we appreciate that. And again, we apologize that the process had missed us how to go about this appropriately. I think the benefit of this for us is that this is something that we are now aware of, and should we have to conduct this again, we would definitely go through the appropriate channels in order there. Since so much of what we do happens on our own campuses, usually a different department has taken care of that officially. But since we were dealing with a partner outside of our area, this was something that I honestly missed. But I'm hoping these changes will be sufficient for us to move forward.
Excellent. Thank you for that addition. That's very helpful. Especially with a new commission member who has not seen any of this before. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Madam Chair, this was reviewed by the Near West Design Review Committee on April 14th. They approved it with a couple of conditions that the storefront door window decals will be installed later, and that the door must not be covered in plywood, and with the understanding that the applicant must submit a permit application for the final solution for that door. This is a much improved presentation. The original installation really cluttered up this building. There's a lot going on here, but I think the presentation you saw today is a huge improvement, and we appreciate the applicant responding to our concerns in the past. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. We'll now open up the floor for the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Brenges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out that this is in a pedestrian retail overlay district, which is what pushed some of the changes for the transparency in the glass. And also there's a sign banding that was mentioned, that there's a plan for this building, as you can see around all of them. So that's what pushed some of the changes from what was original, what you can see down here on the bottom left, to what they finally proposed. And I would agree, they are still going through the doorway, and there was issues because of closing that off to the PRO district. So that's why that has not been finalized yet as well. And I know that they are going through that process right now. So that will return at another time. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that addition. Questions or comments from the, additional questions and comments from the commission? Ms. Bailey? You're muted. Ms. Bailey, you're muted.
Could you go back to the original condition? I'm trying to enlarge the screens. See how it look. So from the inside, you could, it's no issue from looking outside, with the tenants on the inside will be able to see from the outside. Is it frosted glass that you're gonna be using? Would it be able to see from the inside with the new condition?
Carl, why don't you go to the current? Go ahead, Mr. Wheeler. You can keep your mic open.
Okay. No, there is no frosted glass. I think what Miss Bailey might be noticing is there appears to be a frosted look from the photograph. Those are actual blinds that they have on the inside that they close whenever the sun gets too intense. So that's on the inside of theirs, which can be lifted, but the glass itself will not have any frosting.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Miss Bailey, you're muted. I wasn't able to hear your final comment.
Yeah, okay, all right. All right, so that's explained right now. I understand the local review concern about putting a plywood on there for appearance until you figure out what type of door you want to put there. What's there now?
Right now, and it's probably been a few weeks since I've been out, and I'm not sure if Esperanza or their landlord has addressed it, but the last time I saw it, the plywood was up. But when we did the initial install, there was no plywood. There was just a doorway that was there that was not in use to access the inside of the building. And just for clarity, the conversation about how the doorway will be addressed into the future has been specific between Esperanza, their landlord, and the city. Cuyahoga Community College doesn't have a say in the ultimate plan for that space. We are simply brought in to affix the branding to identify Esperanza and the Access Center. So I just wanted to reiterate that doorway decision is separate from our plans.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to be clear that door on the left is not going to be in use. That door is going to remain.
Yeah, that is my understanding. If you were to go back one slide, there is a main entryway that is currently underneath the U.S. Bank signage, and that's the primary entrance into the building. Once you go into that doorway, you are in a common hall or a common foyer area, and then to your immediate left, there is an interior door that will take you into that space. So there is no need for that door to be the primary entrance for that space. It all happens through the main door underneath the U.S. Bank building signage.
Thank you. My second comment is regarding the Esperanza signs. My preference would be that there would be one sign instead of two. But given that the neighboring organization also has two signs, it's probably best to keep the two signs, to maintain that balance. But my preference would be that both organizations would just have one sign. So I don't know. I don't think we can revisit that in the future, but that's probably the biggest detraction to me in this presentation is the two large Esperanza signs. But otherwise, I think it's an improvement over what's there, and I think it's nice that there's more light coming into the building.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you, Chris.
Anderson.
Any questions or comments from the commission? I guess I'll make mine while waiting for some additional people to raise their hands. If there are any that, I think this is a great improvement. I appreciate you listening to the committee or commission's feedback and really opening up the storefront, especially being in a pedestrian overlay district. I think it's helpful so people can start to see all the great work that you're trying to do in the neighborhood. And to Michelle's comment, did you explore maybe putting Access Center also up above, or did versus Esperanza twice? Or is that against the
No.
brand?
It wouldn't theoretically have been against the brand, but we are trying to be respectful that this is primarily Esperanza's location, and the Access Center is a component of it. So we're trying to ensure that we have, ideal representation, but not start to overshadow it. Esperanza has been here before the Access Center initiative, and likely will be there long after the initiative. So I think to make sure that they have a dominant representation on the signage has been the preference from them.
That's helpful to hear. So, I think it's a great improvement from what you had previously. I appreciate you listening to the commission, and, it's great that you understand, and, we'd ask you to clearly communicate that to Landmark, that any graphics on that door or any architectural modifications related to that door opening need to come back to us, at least to staff.
Understood.
Mr. Benozzi? Bennett.
Yes, I just wanted to make one comment, which was my appreciation, both from from my standpoint, being a new member, that you took the ownership of you didn't quite know about these rules and regulations, just as I'm learning, and your aptitude to changing to design, which I very much, when I was reviewing these documents last night, I love how much more linear and open it kind of the graphics became, and that they weren't obstructing into admittedly storefront windows. We need all the light we can get. So I very much appreciate the new composition of the signage.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Other questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I move that we approve this design as presented.
Second it.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. The only comment that I would make is we should note the condition that they will return for any graphics that would be placed on the door and any architectural modifications related to that door opening. But
Yeah.
the plywood needs to be removed.
Yes, thank you.
Any additional conversation?
I had one final question. The certificate of appropriateness, is this a documentation that will be sent to us? And if so, do you know when that would happen? Or is this all just a verbal final?
This is a certificate of appropriateness that would be issued. And Don, would you like to comment on when they could expect that?
We will forward that to you as soon as we can. That shouldn't prohibit you from proceeding with your building permits. But we'll get you a copy of that as soon as we can.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Oh, Mr. Brunges, sorry, you had your hand up?
I've been here that long time and you can't say my name.
I know, I can't speak today. I need another cup of coffee, I guess.
I just want to let you know, I have been in the conversations regarding that doorway. So staff is aware and has been working with the Esperanza group to make the appropriate changes. So we know where they're at right now, but we don't know what the final is, but we are involved with it already.
Excellent. Thanks for noting that, so we know that. Any additional comments? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. We look forward to having this organization continue in the community.
Thank you. We appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you. We'll move on to our fourth applicant, located at 2425 West 11th Street, Our Lady of Mercy School roof replacement.
Hi, this is Greg DiNicola from MCM Company. Am I okay to start?
Yes, please, or my dogs might take over the mic, so go ahead.
Okay. We're here to ask for approval for a roof and gutter replacement at our property, the former Our Lady of Mercy Church on Lincoln Park. Next slide, please. Here's a site map. We're at the northeast corner of the park, catty corner from Civilization in the Tremont Historic District. Next slide, please. A little background about the property. This was a Catholic church that was closed in the early 2000s. My company, MCM, purchased and redeveloped it in 2015. We converted the church into commercial office space. We're now fully occupied. And the property includes a church, the rectory, and the school building. Next slide, please. Here's a site plan. You can see in the top left is the church that has an original slate tile roof. The bottom left is the rectory, which has a new rubber membrane roof that was put on in 2015. And at the back of the property is the school building, highlighted in red. It currently has an original clay tile roof. It's about 100 years old. And it is only the roof of the school building that we're asking for approval to replace. Next slide, please. These are some context photos from across the street. Next slide, please. You can see that the school's largely hidden from view from the street. It's set back about 115 feet from the sidewalk. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So it is partially visible, but as I mentioned, it is set pretty far back from the street. I'll also note that within the last year, we've spent probably $15,000 making repairs to this roof. The gutters really don't collect water anymore. I think that they were undersized originally and they're badly in need of repairs. So every time it rains, we get water dripping inside the building and the gutters really don't collect water and the whole thing just needs to be replaced. Next slide, please. Before we started talking with contractors, we established a budget of about $50,000. We looked at several different options, the first of which was to reuse the existing clay tiles. So in that scenario, we would remove all of the tiles by hand, repair the decking as needed, put a new membrane down, and then reinstall the original tiles. As you can imagine, that's very labor intensive and consequently very expensive. The cheapest price we got for that option was $175,000. Next slide, please. Our second choice was to find a composite clay tile and basically do the same thing, but replace the original tile with a composite. We looked at a Brava brand tile. It was a little cheaper, but not much. That came in at $155,000. Next slide, please. We then looked at a composite slate. As I mentioned, the church, which is adjacent, has an original slate tile. So we thought perhaps a composite slate that could match the church would be appropriate. We priced that out at $165,000. Next slide, please. We then looked at standing seam metal. We thought that might be appropriate because there's existing standing seam metal components on the original buildings. And that price came in at $85,000. Next slide, please. And then lastly, we looked at asphalt shingle, clearly the cheapest option. That came in at $60,000, still a little over our original budget, but that is definitely the most affordable option. Next slide, please. Given all that information, I convinced my company to increase their budget, and we're asking for approval for a standing seam metal roof. We think it's the best compromise between the historic character of the building and the practicality and the cost of some of the other options. So as you can see, there's some existing standing seam metal components on the original building. These are copper, but the precedent does exist on the building, so we think standing seam metal would fit in with the overall property. Next slide. When we renovated in 2015, we also added some new standing seam metal components. What you're looking at is the main entry to the school building offices. And you can see that's a new standing seam metal. And the intent is that the new roof of the school building would match the look and style of that. Next slide, please. Also, the school building set pretty far back from the street. It is partially visible, but we think that because it's set far back, the difference between the existing clay tile and a new standing seam metal will be less noticeable. So we think that there's the opportunity for more flexibility on the materials that we use, just given that it won't really be viewed up and close the way, say, some of the other buildings would. Next slide, please. And finally, I took a walk around Lincoln Park and just looked at what the other church properties in the area have on their roofs. And with maybe one or two exceptions, they are all asphalt shingle. I think the asphalt shingle looks fine, and I do think that it is appropriate. However, we would like to use the standing seam metal because we think it's a better product. It will last longer. We think it's just an overall higher quality. And as I mentioned before, I think it will fit in a little bit better with the historic materials that are on the building already. Next slide, please. Here I've done a rendering of what the new standing seam metal roof would look like. On the left is the original, and on the right is the proposed. We will pick a metal color called burnished slate. I have the color chart in front of me, but it's not in the presentation. I also have samples in my office. The intent is to match the color of the downspout. So it's kind of a dark brown color. And as you can tell from the renderings, the intent is to not match, but to resemble the texture and the color of the existing clay tile, even though it doesn't exactly mimic it. We were trying to keep the change in appearance to a minimum. That's the last slide. I'll also note that we went to the local design review committee. They approved this. They also asked that I explore an alternate material that I had not heard of before. It is a metal product that is made to resemble clay tile. It's not a material my contractor has ever worked with. But just in pricing the material alone, it would increase the cost by 25%. So that would put us over $100,000. And we haven't really gotten into the nuts and bolts of the specific trim pieces and details. But the material alone would put us over $100,000. And I feel like we're already stretching our budget just going from asphalt to standing seam. So I don't think I would be able to afford that alternate material. So I'm here today to ask for approval of the standing seam metal as presented. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have feedback from the local committee? Don?
Madam Chair, I believe Michelle Davis is here.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, as Greg reported, the committee did approve as presented and asked him to explore that, which it sounds like he did. So yeah, they're fine with the standing seam. So that was their recommendation.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. Mr. Trosek. I'm sorry, we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Trosek, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Carl, could you go back a couple of slides, please, to I believe it was a standing seam that showed over the door, that one right there.
Forward one.
Yeah, forward one, please. That one right there. And the question to the applicant, when did you mention that was installed?
This canopy was installed in 2015 when we redeveloped the property.
And I guess my question is to Mr. Pettit, was that something that came before this commission at that point in time? Did it need to come before this commission at that point in time? And if so, was that approved by this commission?
I don't have those plans available
I can answer
today,
that.
but I can confirm that we did approve the renovation of all the buildings on this complex. So I assume that we did approve that canopy over that entrance.
So the reason for my question. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
This redevelopment in 2015, it used historic tax credits, which means it was reviewed and approved by both the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service, as well as local landmarks. So yes, all of this has been approved by local, state, and federal preservation authorities.
All right, and that's where I was going with this, please, is that installation of that canopy using the standing seam that was approved by this particular commission at that point in time. So we're looking at you're asking us to approve something similar to what has been done in the past in the same project, essentially the same property.
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Bailey, you had your hand up for questions and comments?
Yes, okay. One of my questions, since the comment was made regarding to the canopy, is the width of the seam between the seam is going to be the same as this or not?
Yes.
Okay, so it will be.
I believe so.
Carl, could you go to the photograph with the new roof seam? I like that you're trying the color wise, the color trying to match the existing. So one of my questions is it possible to make the width a little smaller, but not too narrow? The seam, Martina, the seam.
The dimension of the seam, it will match the canopy, and it's also pretty close to the dimension of the clay tile.
All right, so the seam width is close to the clay tile width.
Yes.
Okay. Answer my question on that.
Yeah, the
So the
rendering
next
may not be exactly accurate, but that's the intent.
All right, so that answered my question. Could you add, how is the overhang of the gutter roof? How much is it going off the edge of the building top?
The gutters are attached directly to the face of the masonry. When we replace the gutters, these are existing 4-inch gutters. As I mentioned, they're undersized and the water's shedding right over top of them. So we intend to use a 6-inch gutter. And to make the dimensions work, we're gonna build the gutters out between 2 to 4 inches.
All right, but you answered my main question, the width of between the seam. How is it reflecting the existing condition? All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Bonezzi?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I have 2 positives and then 1 concern. The first positive is that I deeply appreciate the use of a high quality material for the roof of this vaguely Romanesque French building. And secondly is that the verticality of those seams is kind of going to help not detract from the original tiles if we decide to go in this direction. My 2 concerns are, one is that in the current building, the gutter is made out of a copper which has patinaed to create this kind of green band around the top of the roof, which would be lost. And then the second would be, for me, would really be seeing the material in person, because as someone who makes renderings daily, I know that seeing a material is very different from how it gets rendered, and making sure that that color would be appropriate to the especially matching the original color of the mullions and the window frames that are currently on the building, and if they complemented. So those would be my 2 concerns.
I have samples in my office. Had this been an in-person presentation, I'd be able to show you. I can, however, take photos of the sample and send it to Don Pettit. That would be acceptable.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Outside in front of the building would be the most beneficial too, so we could see it in natural light next to the natural material.
Agreed.
Does that conclude your questions, Mr. Bonezzi?
That does conclude my questions and concerns. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Anderson, you have questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say I do appreciate you coming before this body before you install the roof. It just makes things so much easier and more pleasant. And I'm glad to see that you're going with a more sustainable material. Given that this building is not directly on the street, I don't think the impact would be as great changing out the clay tile for the standing seam metal as if it was actually sitting on the street. I am a little bit concerned about the color. I think it's going to have to be, a warm or bronzier color to, pick up where on the aged clay tile color that we're going to be losing. And I want to pick up on Mr. Bonesi's comment about the gutters. I too think that the replacement gutters, I know they'll be a little bit larger, and that makes total sense. But I do think that the color should mimic the patinaed copper that's currently there, and that patina copper is found throughout this complex. So I think it's important that we carry it forward here. So those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. DiNicola.
Okay, so my company does lots of historic rehab, so the patinaed copper is an issue that does come up often. And I agree, it will be a shame to lose that. In my experience, I haven't found a material that resembles that patinaed look convincingly. And it often comes across as fake or phony looking, which is why we thought it would be best to match the brown color of the downspouts and the roofing material so that it would really just go away and wouldn't call attention upon itself as a non-convincing material. So that was kind of our thought process, and that's why we picked the color for the gutter that we did.
Would you be open to reviewing that with staff on site at some point with your material so that we can make that decision here in the future? Because I do agree, either you can, there are some materials that, you know, can look very close to the actual material, you know, when it's especially at the height that it is, but there are some materials that don't. So we'd ask you if you could explore that and bring it to staff for the final gutter color is what I would recommend.
Sure, I can do that.
Additional question, Ms. Anderson?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that perhaps there's a good quality metal paint that could be used to create that patina copper color that won't be as you know, unrealistic as the already made gutter products that are out there.
I think that's, you know, the devil, one of the beauties of metal is the maintenance, why most owners love it. You know, as soon as you put paint on it, then it becomes a maintenance. So I think there's, if that's an option that you'd be open to, that's great. And if there are other metals that could emulate the copper, I think we should also explore those to see if there's an option that we can agree to that would be meet your goal of not looking fake, but our goal of maintaining the existing character.
And is that something that I just discuss with staff when I apply for the
Correct.
permit? Okay.
Correct.
I can do that.
Not seeing any other hands. I guess I echo some of the comments that have been made about, you know, we appreciate you coming to us first, and you showing us your process of going through this, because obviously our focus is maintain the character of the building, but appreciate, you know, when you can help guide us through the process that you've taken to come to your final proposal. The question that I have, I also agree with the comment on the gutter and the material. You know, I would rather have seen the tile, but based on where this is located in the site, I think I can, you know, agree that, you know, the metal could be is appropriate use here. But my question for you is, you know, are you outside the look back period for the historic tax credits? I'm assuming you are based on some of your tenants in here, but it's always, we need to ask that.
Yes, we are outside the look back period.
Okay, excellent. Because is the look back period 6 years?
It's 5.
5 years? Okay, thank you. I think that is those are my questions. Additional questions or comments from the commission, or someone like to put forward a motion?
Madam Chair, what was the comments, trying to match the color of the, gutter carpet of the existing and the size of the gutter. And-
The two conditions that I heard, or that I may recommend to be included in the motion would be to review the actual metal color with staff, either through a photograph, or on site. And then to review the final, gutter color, with staff. The size of it, I think, is not, should not be included in the
Okay.
motion, because
Okay.
the size needs to be based on the water amount, not the current size.
All right. All right. All right, I'll make a motion.
Excellent, go ahead.
To approve the existing, presentation using, metal seam, matching the existing canopy, with staff or the site visit is one of the conditions to look at the sample, to pick a color. And, what was the other one?
To review
the
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 gutter
color?
materials and colors with staff.
With the staff.
Excellent. So the motion is to approve with, as presented, with the conditions to review the final, the proposed roof color with staff and review gutter color options with staff. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you for that second. Any further discussion? Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trot.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent.
Thank-
We look
thank
forward to
you.
in the continuation of this project. It's a great facility. Move on to our next applicant, located at the former Holy Ghost Byzantine Church, located at 1415 Kenilworth Avenue, renovation for the Elliott Event Center. Welcome, Ms. Nord. You can open up your mic and tell us about your project.
Hey everyone, my name is Stephanie Nord. I recently bought this church with my fiance Tim. We are Tremont natives. We've been here since 2015. Our plan for this building is to turn it into an event center for the community, for weddings, corporate events, private parties, whatever you can think of. So a little bit about me. I've been doing events for 15 years. I started in weddings. I've done corporate events. I worked at Case Western in their alumni department for the past year doing events for their alumni. And so I think this was just the next step in my career. And because we are Tremont natives, we wanted to put our money and our resources in our backyard. And seeing that this building was for sale last summer really was a great opportunity for us. And I think for the community, because we really do want to bring this church back to life. It's been vacant since 2015, I believe. And plans before we bought this were to raise it. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we've met with Tremont Auburn, the Auburn Lincoln Park Block Club, Tremont's Economic Development Group, and the local historic district, and have received unanimous approval from each group. So I think this is something that is going to benefit the community and that everybody's really excited for. So we have put a lot of thought into the design of the church itself. We've taken into consideration landmarks, comments, the local historic design, and the community. And we think we put together a presentation that's going to benefit everyone involved and make sure that we can bring this building back to life. So I'm going to pass this over to Paul. He is with Dimmitt Architects, and he's going to run through the presentation for you.
Good morning, Commission. Can you guys all hear me? I just wanted to start by saying thank you for all the commission members and the local design review people that came out about a month ago to do the site walk of the building and the presentation that was given by Whitney, I think, on the stained glass windows. And hopefully that gives a pretty good background to the condition of the inside of the church and the stained glass as it relates to the exterior. And we hope we've come to a good solution here that you guys will approve. So I'm going to walk you through the proposed exterior renovations, some floor plans, site plans as it relates from the interior to the exterior, and some of the renovations that are planned. So this first slide is just a view of the church from Kenilworth, from the north of the church. So this is the main street frontage. And you can kind of tell as we go through the presentation that this Kenilworth facade is where they really kind of have put all their, the bulk of the quality products on the exterior of the building. And as you kind of move back away from Kenilworth, I think, you definitely note to the west, the house that's kind of right next to it. And assuming that there was probably one to the east at some point, it kind of blocks the remainder of the church as it goes back. So we can go to the next slide, see a view, kind of looking at a catty corner here. And I think some notable things here, you see the change of the color of the brick from that brown orangish brick on the front of the church to a more utilitarian brick as you go back. This side is actually pink. It's been painted. The opposite side on the west actually is the original brick color. It's kind of like a traditional kind of red burgundy brick. But the other thing I kind of to note in this slide here is the connection that was made to the neighboring home. That has all been demolished. You'll see some photos of before and after. That was actually demolished a little while ago, and it has. There's some pretty significant demolition that was done to the actual facade of the building. So it wasn't really done in a really nice, historical, tasteful manner. And so hopefully the renovation is going to take care of quite a few of those items. But you'll see that demolition that has taken place. And there's also a very large mechanical system that you can't quite see. It's hidden behind the tree, but we have some photos of that. We can go to the next slide. So the parcel is pretty compact. To the west, there's just a few feet to the west lot line. There's a fence along that lot line. And then to the east, the parcels have been kind of broken apart and distributed. So the parking lot is a separate parcel. The existing house that was attached to the church is a separate parcel. And the way that's been broken off, we only have currently a few feet from the face of the church on the east side to the lot line. But Stephanie and Tim are getting an additional 3-foot access easement to the back of the church. And much of this is required due to the new occupancy. Even though it's still going to be an assembly space, the change in use from the church assembly to the current assembly, we have some additional requirements for egress. And so we have a access from the back of the church as one means of egress. And then additionally, kind of to the north of the church, and you'll see this in the floor plans, but I think it's kind of notable here on the site plan, right behind the northeast tower there, we have a proposed access for a elevator and for an additional stair for egress. And that'll bring the building up for accessibility code to allow access to, somebody in a wheelchair to either of the event center levels, either on the lower level or on that first floor level, which doesn't currently exist. Currently, you have to go upstairs to get into the building. So this is going to allow for that access and really hopefully in a tasteful way. We've seen some other churches that have added ramps into that front stair, but we're really trying to maintain that front facade in its current condition. And so we're not proposing to add any ramp there. We can actually address that through this elevator. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is the lower level plan, and just as kind of it relates to the exterior, you could see the elevator that I was talking about to the lower part of the sheet next to the room labeled coat closet. So that coat closet's actually kind of the bell tower. And then we're proposing this elevator. There is an existing piece of mechanical equipment that accesses through that window. And so we're proposing to use kind of that already affected area, the demolition that was done for that mechanical equipment for that access door to the elevator. And it's also aligning with the window you'll see above in the elevations. The kind of moving to the south, going page left, the new stair there also has a access door. It's at the mid-level, so that comes out directly to grade. And there is a very large piece of mechanical equipment that actually is over the lot lines. That's all going to be removed, and we're going to be taking advantage of that kind of demolition area to put in the door there. There's an additional stair to the south that I mentioned, and if we can go to the next slide. That stair accesses out of an existing door to the south of the building. We are planning on rebuilding new construction stairs on the outside of the building to get down to grade, but trying to reuse that existing access point there. Just some more notable things on here. You can see all the windows. We're going to talk a lot about the window replacements. But there is kind of a separation between the front of the church, the tower windows, and then the kind of the main event space windows that are kind of all opening into that main event space versus the ones that are on the front of the church. And if we go to the next slide, please. So you see the bell towers, the two mirrored bell towers around the central large window, the rose window that's in the middle there, and then the tower windows, and then you kind of see the windows that are more into the main event space. If we can go to the next slide. So just some images of the exterior church. So obviously, as I was mentioning, the kind of orange brick, the stone details on the front of the church. And then as you kind of move down the side of the church, they go to that more utilitarian brick. The red brick there. The second row of pictures is on the west side of the building, so you can see how tight we are against the lot line. And then the bottom row of pictures there is on the east side. I would say that the second picture on the bottom row shows that mechanical equipment that's existing on that facade. I can tell there's a big fence around it now, but it essentially just put a very large hole in the side of the wall there. And then that third picture in the bottom row is a pre-existing picture. You can tell because there's no snow in it of the addition that was demolished. And then if you go to the next slide. So the second row and the bottom row shows the current condition of that facade without the addition there. You can tell the addition where it was because that brick was not painted. But I think a couple notable things on these pictures is the condition of a lot of the basement windows are in varying states of either having been filled with brick and some glass block, or being completely blocked in with CMU, and they're kind of just all over the place. And you'll see in our elevations, we are proposing to open all of those basement windows up to their pre-existing frame size and open up and get more light into the basement there. Next slide, please. So these are our proposed elevations for the renovations to the church, and I'll kind of go through each item. The kind of working from the top down, the crosses there are going to be cleaned, maintained, in place. The domes themselves there's not really any scope besides kind of repair and just making sure that they're watertight. But again, just kind of a cleaning and maintenance there. The panels where you have the vents on the top of the domes and in between the two domes, those are proposed to be cleaned and repaired in place. And as you go down, the brick on this front facade, all the stonework is proposed to be cleaned tuck pointed and kind of brought back to its prior glory. The stone that's around the window, you'll see it's kind of like a taupish color. They are currently painted. Some of them are painted, some of them aren't, in a gray color. And we are proposing on this front facade to remove that paint from those and get those back to the original stone color. So that'll kind of all match all the way around. The front steps will be repaired and then a traffic coating put on them to kind of match the color of the stone. And so that'll hopefully, give them a much more longevity. There is some pitting on them, so that'll all kind of be repaired, and then that coating will go on top of it. And then the railings will just be brought up to essentially to code, but kind of maintained as a color to match the newer windows that we'll be putting on the sides of the buildings, and that'll be a medium bronze color. The front doors are proposed to be cleaned, and if possible, depending once we get into the renovation and we actually really get into how the quality of the doors is, we'd like to strip them back to the original wood, and that'll just kind of all be a function of the deterioration, and hopefully that's that'll be possible. The windows on this front elevation on the tower and the large rose window, we've had a lot of discussion about. We've been working with Whitney Stained Glass to review all the stained glass windows in the building. And unfortunately, just the cost of doing every window in the building is exorbitant. They are in very rough shape. They need to be taken out, reglazed, reset in a frame, and then reinstalled. They're all in bad enough condition that Whitney has essentially said that needs to happen as part of the renovation. So we've kind of gone back and forth, and hopefully this proposal, what we're planning on doing is really kind of focusing the effort and the finances to the front of the building. And so we are proposing to remove these stained glass windows, get them repaired per the scope from Whitney. The tower windows will be removed and then put back. There is a protective glazing that is over these windows, which it's like a second, almost like for lack of a better term, a storm window. And the plan is to remove that and just have the full kind of glory of these stained glass windows, shining out. So we won't have that kind of like film, that's kind of obstructing the view and the beauty of these windows. The central rose window, what the plan is currently is to remove it, and the center portion of it, the center circle that you see, is going to be replaced. It's a very religious iconographic image that's in there, and the plan is to replace it with something that will be a design for the new space. That is yet to be designed. We would propose bringing that back to the board once that's designed in the future, almost as kind of like a signage piece. But all of the remainder of the window outside of that center circle would be the historic stained glass repaired and replaced. Again, the same for the protective glazing on this one. We would propose not putting that protective glazing back over this, just to really let this thing shine as kind of the symbolic piece of the church. We also are planning on lighting these windows from the interior, actually, so that they'll kind of glow versus lighting it from the exterior, putting a spotlight on it. So we really want these to kind of be, the kind of the beautiful lighting on the exterior of the building. I don't think it's part of this package, but we are proposing to add lighting to the domes on the top, just as a wash to highlight the two domes, and then proposing kind of like a lantern type fixture at each of the three portico bays that'll hang inside of that portico bay, kind of to the top of the door. So we don't have a ton of space in there, but those will kind of hang down to the top of the door. And if you go to the next slide, So on the east elevation, the proposal again is on those, the tower windows, same scope as the front. You can see here the basement windows here are now going to be replaced. This will be like an aluminum storefront type window. And they'll match kind of the previous framing sizes. They'll be completely opened up. So we'll be getting some nice light down into the basement. We are proposing a medium bronze window frame for all of those. And kind of as an offset to the cost of the stained glass windows on the front of the building, we are proposing removing the stained glass windows along the 5 on this side and the 5 on the opposite side to a storefront type material. That's going to help with obviously the cost, sound. There's some concern about the event center and the neighboring home. So these will create a much better sound attenuated assembly versus the stained glass windows that are in there. Also energy efficiency. These will help immensely with the energy cost and the energy footprint of this building overall. The brick, as we noted, has been painted. The plan is to paint this side of the building as well. The brick on the opposite side is not painted. We're going to maintain that as it is, just cleaning and tuck pointing as necessary, just as maintenance. And the proposal would be once we do that cleaning of the brick, that we would determine the color to kind of closely match that brick. But obviously it'll be kind of in that burgundy color. But like I said, we really want to make sure that we're getting kind of the right color in there. So we're going to do that after the brick is cleaned on the rest of the building. We are showing new gutters and downspouts on these. That metal would match the storefront frame material. I think the other 2 items on this, you kind of see them towards the tower on that first floor are the new doors. So the one to the right is the elevator access door. And there is a small canopy over that. We're just thinking a very simple, MAPES type canopy. So it wouldn't have, a real profound effect on the exterior elevation of the church, but really just to give some coverage for somebody that might be waiting for the elevator to come. They would have some protection from snow, rain at that area. And you can kind of see I've dashed it in there. I don't know how well you guys can see it on your computer screens, but we did dash in those mechanical equipment openings to kind of show where we're going to be replacing, where these doors are kind of going in replacement of those openings. So trying to be, just use those pieces that are already been demolished. And then the door to the left of that, screen left, is the entry door to the stair at that mid-level landing at that previous mechanical equipment. And then to the very back of the building, you see the new stairs up to the rear access piece. Next slide. And then the west elevation, again, same scope for the tower windows. And I would say the only really notable thing on this elevation, obviously we'll be cleaning the brick versus painting it. And there is one window to the north, just south of the tower, that is blocked in currently. That is the electrical service access. So we are proposing to leave that blocked in. It's actually bricked in, so we would be proposing to leave that as is. The room behind that is the electrical metering room, so we can't really have any, windows into that space. And I believe that is the full scope for our proposed exterior renovations for your approval.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Do we have feedback from the local committee? Ms. Davis?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Michelle Davis again from Tremont West. So this project has come a long way. The first time they presented to our local group prior to the walkthrough that we did, they had asked to remove all of the stained glass, and that was concerning to the committee. So our local committee was very pleased with the changes they made and saving the stained glass and approved this as presented. Of course, they're a little interested in seeing the paint color, although our committee doesn't really have a say in it. Once you guys get to that point, they would like to see it before it gets painted. And I think that's it. So great job, you guys.
Excellent. Thanks for the feedback. We'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Ms. Bailey?
Well, first of all, I would like to commend the architect for, the great work on restoring the building as is, the best of your ability with it. Could you go to the front elevation of your presentation? And I know this is faces to the owner. And I understand the center is the existing glass, is that original or has it been changed over time?
I believe it is original. I know that there were some windows throughout the building that had damage from, I think there was a baseball at some point. But I think it is original. Yeah.
So I understand that that's one of the elements that is not part of the plan of the restore.
We will be restoring the 8 tower windows, and then the rose window. Our proposal is that we change the design of the center of the rose window, and the reasoning behind this is we do appreciate and understand that this was a church at one point, but we want to offer a secular event space because people will be getting married here, and so we just want to make it inclusive for everybody. And so we decided that we do understand that the front is a huge design element for this church and goes back 100 years. But just changing that center to maybe something that's a little more similar to like the floral design on the tower windows, something that still keeps the historic aspect of it, but just does not promote that religious iconography.
Understandable. I'm just wondering somehow if that center rose, not saying that you can do it, but just maybe thinking about donating it or somehow looking at somehow putting it somewhere on a list, maybe someone put it somewhere else. I'm not saying, I'm just,
Sure,
just
no,
thinking out in the air. But anyway, back to the architect. I didn't hear you say anything about the railing, the staircase on the railing.
Sure. So the railing would be a metal, and it would be to match the storefront windows that would be on the side elevations. And just as a side note, I think Stephanie was trying to step in there. So they are planning on retaining all of the stained glass windows that will be removed, both that center rose piece and some of the side windows. We are looking to incorporate that into the interior architecture, some of the bar areas that'll be on the inside of the plan. And then also there, I believe the neighbor is looking at taking some of those to put in his windows. So you'll actually see those from Lincoln Park, which I think is a nice, kind of nice homage to the church there even more.
And what about the doors?
So the front doors, we're going to do our best to try to maintain those back, stripping them back to the original wood and kind of finishing those to the original kind of wood color. The side doors would be like a hollow metal door, and those would match again the storefront, that medium bronze framework. Again,
I like that you trying to reuse the material, including the stains on the rest of the windows. The window stains. Could you explain more what you're trying to paint on the building?
Yeah, so if we can go to I think it's the next slide. So you can see on this elevation, there's kind of a darker red color on the brick versus the back portion. It's a little bit lighter. So this whole facade has been painted. Well, I guess not the whole facade. The part where they demolished the addition between the two buildings, that's kind of the original brick. But trying to delineate that separate area out, the plan is to paint this whole side just to really make sure that it's one consistent color from back to front.
I agree. I don't know if this may have to be a site visit with staff or the commission or the local reviews to help with the color selection.
We would welcome that, and much as they were mentioning in the last presentation about the standing seam metal, we'd be glad to take pictures with some paint swatches out there and send them in for board review.
Notice one thing, but I'm assuming it's related to the utility conduits. On the west elevation, could you explain, go to the west elevation? Are those utilities, the silver with that box, was that a junction box? Is that related to utility?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the two electrical service meters for the building. And we kind of threw them on the elevation just to note that window that's located there. That's the electrical service entry closet for the entire building. And the reason we didn't replace that filled-in window with a new lighted window.
All right, how much has been doing down to the roof?
Yeah, there's the scope of the roof, there's no replacement, so it's going to remain as is. It's essentially just repair, at any points that kind of need it based on the age of the roof. And, just kind of flashing cleanup stuff, but no major roof renovation scope at this point.
The roof was actually replaced, I believe, maybe 2017 or 18 by the owners before it was sold. I think after it was the cultural center. So the roof is new. The domes have holes in them. I don't know if you've driven by it, but they tried to cover it up with a tarp at one point, but that didn't stay. So right now when it rains, it pours directly into the building. So we're hoping to fix that as soon as possible.
Again, thank you to the owner and also to the architect for the good job in trying to restore and just maintain the existence of the condition of the building and not change and alternate to architecture feature. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. We'll move on to Mr. Dreyer.
Thank you. I want to start with the stained glass windows. I'm glad that you're intending to keep them, and I think that's a critically important thing to do. And I mean, I would even make it part of any motion that we do that those windows be kept with the building. I'll challenge you a little bit on the rose window. I understand the desire to make it less religious. But it is a major part of this building, and this building does have a lot of crosses on the front. So I think anybody who uses this for an event is probably okay with the religious nature and the religious history of the building. So I would ask you to think about that maybe some more. But if you do end up replacing it, I still would hope that you could reuse that religious window somewhere as well. As I recall with this building, the front steps as they exist are pretty steep and pretty hard to navigate. And so I think that really points towards the railing that you're going to add, which I think is good, as really an important focus. And I appreciate that you're trying to make it not a visual addition, which I appreciate. It's a functional railing and that's strong. And not exact her purview, but I'm going to ask the dreaded parking question.
I can speak to that.
You know, it's an event center, and just
I think we lost him.
I mean, I believe there is still a building going up next door. Although I don't know that for a fact, but I think we approved an apartment building in what is now the parking lot, which I understand is a separate parcel. But I'm just wondering if you had thought about parking, and in particular to our friend at Tremont West, whether that came up with the neighbors.
Yeah, we actually are renting a parking lot down the street from the owner of Taps and Tails, and we will be providing a valet service. We have contracts in place for both of those. The parking lot can fit at least 88 spots, which is double the requirement for our variance needed. And we are working with the city to mark off the front of our building as a valet drop-off zone.
See, that was so simple. And I wish other people could take that lesson, boy. The proposed building next door, quite a discussion about parking with them, and so that's why I felt the need to bring it up. One of my issues with the building next door was I felt that it was going to block this building, and this building being a real gem, I think, and so I'm glad that you're doing everything you can to really preserve the look and really give it a new life. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dreyer. Mr. Benezzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was taking notes because there's a lot of scope, and some of these might echo the comments of my fellow members. But my first comment is I would deeply appreciate, and that is the wrong word. I am very grateful that as a member of the community who has lived in Tremont for a very long time, as you said, that you're taking this challenge to kind of rebuild and maintain this building, which has notably on the east and west elevations gotten a lot of abuse, which also goes back to the architect for, a great admiration for kind of reorganizing and bringing it back to its original intent, and that the way that these elevations were intended. The other thing that I wanted to commend you on was, again, and this echoes kind of the problems of accessibility in the building, which is that you could easily, have dismantled the front elevation, but taking extra care to maintain the front elevation, which in religious architecture is such a prominent, important thing, is the frontal image of this thing as a graphic. And so I appreciate that. My only concern, which has been echoed a lot, was the rose window, and taking into consideration the importance of that in that front elevation, and whether you do redesign it to be a new stained glass window, no matter what happens down the road or what the decision is that original window is somehow put to use. I think that's a very deeply important thing to kind of consider in the overall scope of this work. But overall, it's a fantastic presentation, and I'm very pleased with both yourself for taking on this challenge and this building in the community, and then also from the architect's standpoint of really carefully deciding what's too much and what's too little in the scope of the work. So those were my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Benezzi. Mr. Pettit, you had comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to update the commission. The proposal for the 5-story apartment building next door to the church that we approved with a lot of difficulty was turned down by the Board of Zoning Appeals for their variances. So I just wanted the commission to know that that building will not be built as currently designed. It will have to come back to us for a new proposal. And at the moment, that's still very much up in the air. So right now, that building will not go on the corner, but we're waiting to see if there will be another proposal in the future. Thank you.
That's great feedback. Was not aware of that. So thanks for updating us on that. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to say that I'm really pleased that we are going to have this building as a functioning place for the public to enjoy. I really am excited about the idea of an event center here. I think that's a terrific use. You know, I think they put a lot of thought into this project, which is a wonderful thing. I have some concerns about the windows. I was at the site visit. We got a lot of really interesting information from Whitney, the stained glass expert that was there. And a few things. I have some questions regarding replacing the stained glass panel in the main front round window. Is that going to say like Elliott Event Center, or is it going to be some sort of a kind of neutral design? I'm just wondering what is going in there.
It will, we're working on that right now with Whitney Stained Glass. They will be designing it. It will not have any words. I want it to be something neutral that matches the design of the other windows. That can speak to its history, but that can live with the building for another 100 years. So it will not have any words, mostly looking into some kind of flower, a little background. My logo has rose hip in it. And what I found was that the Rusin immigrants who started this church came from the Carpathian Mountains over in Eastern Europe. And in the Carpathian Mountains, rose hip was very prevalent. So I wanted to use that piece of history and work it into our branding and our logo. So that might be something that is going in the center. But we will be coming back with the final design to present to the board.
Thank you. That's very interesting. So there would be like some other signage that will be in your final design, I would think then.
Probably, but not, I don't think something, we're not exactly sure yet, but we would come back with it. And it wouldn't go on the windows.
Okay, thank you. As for the remaining windows, you're going to be incorporating them into the interior renovation, or at least some of them you'll be incorporating into the interior renovations?
Possibly some of them. That is something we are looking into. Maybe the bar in the basement. The design is going to be a little more eclectic. Upstairs is going to be very neutral. And then, like Paul had mentioned, Tom Diamond owns the Rectory House that faces Lincoln Park, and he was interested in taking those and putting them on the first floor of his building. So it kind of stays within the family and can be enjoyed from the park.
Okay, that's good to know. You know, I realize it's a concern, and I appreciate that. As being kind of a secular person myself, I realize having the religious imagery, it may not be that conducive to your use. My concern is, I've been around for a long time, and years ago people would, sell grandma's house on Franklin Boulevard and remove all the leaded glass windows because, oh, what the heck, it's a declining neighborhood. Why do they need to have these wonderful windows? We can put them in our rec room. And of course that mentality is gone now, but I was in the building, and it's a rather plain church, but those windows are such a huge component of the major aesthetic of that building, and they're beautiful. They're amazing windows. I'm just wondering if there could be more preserved, or, you know, I realize that it's expensive to restore them, but maybe they could be restored in phases like they're doing at St. Pat's. I just wondering if there's other avenues that could be explored in order to retain, you know, maybe a couple more of these windows in the building, you know, as part of that, the integral fabric of that design.
So
Those are my comments.
we have taken all that into account because we talked to a lot of people about the importance of these windows. Based on the scope of our project, and this is a very expensive project, we wanted to see, okay, where are our priorities with this building? And we decided that that is the facade, the front on Kenilworth. So we are putting a lot into restoring the brick to its original glory, making it useful on the front. So we wanted to put our efforts on the front of the building. From the east side, there's not a project going there right now because they were turned down, but eventually something will go there. So we didn't want to put our efforts into the side of the building that will someday probably be covered up, just like on the other side there is a building or there's a house. So we're putting a lot of our resources to bringing up the front of this building, which we think is the most important. But additionally, like you said, this is a circular event space, so we will try to rework the stained glass, maybe interior from the house across the street. It will not be thrown out. I did talk to the church down in Parma. They were not interested in it. They didn't take it when they closed. So we will try to find something for it. We don't want to just throw it out. That's not our plan, but we do want to speak to the importance of bringing the front of the building back to its original glory.
I now have a follow-up question regarding the replacement windows. In residential renovation, a lot of developers of residential renovations can obtain tax abatement, but the property must obtain like a green rating. So replacement windows are almost a must in order to achieve that green rating. Is there any kind of issues here? I mean, I realize that the new windows are going to be a lot more efficient, but I was just wondering if there's any kind of abatement or credits or something that you would be receiving, which is contingent upon you obtaining a green rating for the building.
We are not looking for tax credits or abatements for the windows.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brunges, and then I'll make my comments. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to I have two things. One, potentially for the applicants to check with the Cleveland Restoration Society regarding the lighting of the towers. They used to have a program for lighting their Sacred Landmarks program, and I don't know if that is still in effect or not. But to check that and see if there's some opportunity to maybe save some money with and doing a proper uplighting of the towers. And then my other concern also was with the stained glass windows. We should look at this as, if we're removing these need to be potentially reversible in the future. So I think that splitting these up to the neighbor would not be advisable. And I realize it's on the same property, but if in the future that they're slowly put back in, that you have all the pieces that you can put back in together. Now, whether you put these into storage and do your repairs over time as it becomes available, that's great. But I would advise not splitting up the set as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just gonna reiterate some of that. I know Whitney Glass. So to step back, I was on the site visit also with Ms. Anderson and a few others. Yeah, and It's great to see this facility have an opportunity to take on a new use because it's a wonderful facility that can't meet the current, the previous use. So an event center, I think, is a wonderful reuse for this type of facility. It pains me to take out the stained glass windows on the sides, but I truly appreciate that you took our advice and you maintained them on the front because right now it's bookend, by a house on the west side, but eventually it may be on the east. So it's not as apparent as that front elevation, but currently it still is visible. So I would agree with Carl's comments that I would recommend you try to maintain the windows. Whitney Glass does store many stained glass windows for people during the times of restoration or in those middle grounds also. So I would continue your conversations with Whitney Glass. And I would also just echo what Mr. Dreyer said is, you wouldn't select this facility if you weren't drawn to its beautiful, ornate character. And to me, the rose window doesn't detract from it. It aligns with the character that is related to this front elevation with the crosses and so forth. So as you continue through your design, I won't say you have to keep it, but I'd ask you just to consider it as you review the new designs, because I think that's is sort of a given. I don't think people who would select this location would be turned off by that, but that's my personal opinion. So I commend you, and as we talked on site, I think this is a great use. I think the location, the neighborhood, is very excited about it, and I'm really happy to see the changes that you made from our initial site visit to now. So thank you for listening to our advice and really trying to be a good steward for this facility. Other questions or comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
Can I make a comment before the motion? Ms. Noah, Carl, could you go back to the whole rose glass again? And I understand, Ms. Noah, based on your use of the facility, and it's not related to religion. And this thought just came to my mind, and I'm just wondering, have you and the architect have thought about it? Have you thought about maybe possible putting some type of opaque, but maybe a soft material that just to cover the center part of it, and maybe the rest of it can remain stained?
We did not, just because talking with Whitney, we have to take the entire thing out to restore it anyway. And so we thought that replacing the center was something that speaks to the business, and also
you may not have to take it out.
We still
It's
have
in
to take
pretty
it out. It's
poor
falling
shape.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are pieces that are falling out, and we can't leave it as is.
The lead is failing, and that's there you go. Carl's picture shows it.
Mm-hmm.
Understand it's failing.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that?
We didn't, only because we know we have to take out the entire thing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's crumbling. There's giant holes in it that just let in air. So it's not sustainable as is.
Well, that was just a thought, just covering up just that religion part, because the rest of it doesn't appear a religion. It's just colorful design. It's just that small centerpiece is more religion, whereas the rest of it is just more colorful. So that was just a thought.
Other questions or comments, or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I put for a motion.
Go ahead.
The motion is to approve the plasticization as presented. The paint color on the masonry, that the color, if possible, that it do a site visit, show the paint sample to the commission and a local design review just to select the color. And if possible, we thank the rose glass. And just the last comment that was made, and it was some other suggestion about thinking about not splitting the other stained glass among the community. If you later on in the future want to bring it all back together, think about that. That's all I can think about. Unless anyone else have anything else to add on.
Just going to repeat that again, just so that Don is clear. You're approving recommending approving the presentation or the design as presented with the conditions of submitting the paint final color for the masonry on the east elevation to staff for final approval. Consideration to maintain the rose window as is through the restoration, but then I would say the requirement to try to keep the remaining windows together so that this modification is reversible in the future.
Yes, and also the option of covering up the religion part, which was in question by the owner.
I think that would be a replacement.
Rose stain and repair it.
Right, I think that's where they'll need to return with the final decision on the rose window.
Oh, yes, okay, yes.
We'll just leave it
Return for that for the final decision. But the color one, not just the staff, but I heard earlier from the local design review that they would like to also see the color as well.
Correct, to their staff also.
Yeah.
Don, do you have all the conditions clear?
I'll second, but I'd like to add a condition.
I think I have it. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Dryer.
Just that the final design for the rose window, whatever that design is, should also come back to staff.
Agree.
Oh.
So consideration to maintain the current design and the final decision should come back. Design should come back to
commission.
Landmark's staff, and the staff can decide if it needs to come to commission.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson.
With the consideration that the windows will be preserved and placed in storage and as a group, so they are still available to some future user.
That was a condition. Yes.
That's a condition, yes. With that condition, I will vote yes.
Before we do the motion,
we're already voting. We have to.
Can we go over the motion? Read the motion again.
It's a motion to approve as presented.
The motion is that
with submitting the final paint colors to staff for review. Consideration to maintain the rose window as is. Keeping the remaining windows together in the event that, so that they are reversible in the future. and that the final design for the rose window will come back to staff for review.
Agree.
Um,
Are you okay?
I just want to make it clear that the intent is to keep the windows together, but there's an understanding that some of the windows will be reused within the facility. And I just want to make sure that we're not preventing that possibility.
Yes.
I'm
So
okay with that
that is
also.
the motion on the table.
Ms. Anderson, do you still vote yes to that motion?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Pettit, continue.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Once
Thank you
again,
so
thank you.
much.
Thank you for your stewardship for this building, and we look forward to, you know, the future, your future company joining or going to the facility.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mike. Not talking well today, so apologize. We'll now move on to our next applicant, the Russin Garden at 9300 or 930 East Boulevard, addition of pedestals. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function? You can open your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Hi, good morning. This is Paul Burek. I'm with the Russin community here in Cleveland. In fact, the previous submittal that you just reviewed is a perfect segue into my presentation. Some of you may know me as being Czech and being associated with the Czech Cultural Garden. But I have attended several weddings in that church, my cousin's weddings, and it was pointed out to me that at the cornerstone of the church is, as a founder, is the name of Reverend Emil Burek, my name. And that led to some research on my wife's part, doing some genealogy to identify that from my father's side, I have a Russin heritage. And consequently, I became involved, besides being involved with the Czech community, with the Russin community. And thus I'm here to present these additional pedestals, not in any contractual arrangement, but strictly as a member of the Russin community. So the Russin Garden is often misrepresented. Some people think it should be Russian garden, that it's misspelled, etc. The Russin community, though strong in United States, is very little is known about it because it's not a country. There is no Russin nation. It's a minority of people, predominantly from the Carpathian Mountains in the eastern Slovakia, southern Poland, western Ukraine, but they do have distinct identity, music, etc. So and there were strong enough community back when the gardens were founded to have one of the original gardens built. To remedy that situation, what we're proposing is 4 pedestals that would identify the area where the Russins come from. There'll be one, history, some contributions, and the last one most likely would be dedicated to Andy Warhol, who is of Russin background. Again, some of the people will say Russins, Karpato-Russin, Rusnian, different variations of all meaning describing the same people. Perhaps you can go on to the next slide. I apologize, I don't have nice digital drawings, had to do it by hand. But basically, it would be granite pedestal, 4 granite pedestals, as you see on the bottom drawing, that would follow existing path as people come in. The center of the garden with the statue of Reverend Duknovich is to the left. And then there's an existing walk that goes to the lower section of the garden. Along that section, you would have the 4 pedestals that are depicted, or kind of a drawing of which is in the upper drawing. A granite pedestal that would have a sloped surface, and the description of the ethnicity, the history, the map, etc. that I noted. Maybe go to the next. I forget what the presentation. So here, the top photograph shows looking from the center of the Rusin Garden. To the left, you see existing statue of Reverend Duknovich, and what you see, the sidewalk, if you can see that, going towards down the center of the photograph is where these pedestals would be. The lower photograph shows the same view looking from the opposite side. So as you see to the right-hand side, you see those steps, and then the internal sidewalk. This is not public sidewalk that abuts East Boulevard. It's within the garden itself, would have the 4 pedestals. The pedestals, the very last bottom shows similar pedestal. I believe that's in the India garden. They're also in the Syrian garden. So there are numerous examples of pedestals in the gardens that function the same way, communicate to the visitor about that nationality. Again, the mission of the gardens is to educate people. So when people leave the specific garden, they're a little more educated about that particular nationality. Is there a next slide? Okay, that's it. So those were the slides I provided. I believe Lori Eshik is online too, and she can confirm that our Design and Preservation Committee approved this.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to confirm that the Design and Preservation Committee of the Cultural Gardens Federation approved the project on February 12th, and the full board of the Federation approved it on February 15th. So we're in the organization is in full support of this project.
Excellent. Thank you for that addition. And then I guess that you are the local committee, so apologize. We'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Bailey?
Hello, Mr. Buick. On the color that you showed for the Indian granite, is that the color that that's gonna be used for the 4 pedestal?
Yes, or very close to it. Obviously, different quarries may vary, but the reason for that is, and I should have taken a picture, within the existing Rusin Garden, there is a masonry wall that has sort of a checkered pattern with a red brick and gray stone in a checkered-like pattern. So we would pick on that stone color to continue the theme.
And then the 4 pedestal, is it gonna have landscaping around? Carl, could you go back to the sketch?
Yes, the idea.
Is it gonna be any landscaping around the 4 pedestal?
Yes, the idea would be to have a ground cover to avoid any need for grass cutting. We have experienced in the gardens that Of course, when the grass is cut by the city, they use large equipment, and often it's likely to nick or damage anything if they have to go close to it. So the idea is to create a band that connects the proposed pedestals and have a ground cover so that no grass cutting needs to come close.
And there's no seating and nothing, just like in the Indian garden, just walking by and just standing and looking at the pedestal. No
Correct.
seating and nothing.
Correct.
That's all my question.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Other questions or comments from the commission? I guess I'll give you mine as we see if there's anyone else who'd like to comment. You never have to apologize for hand drawing. You know, they communicate this very well. The size maybe could be increased a little bit, but you know, besides that, they're very effective. So thank you for that. I think this is a very delicate insertion, you know, into the garden to help, you know, the overall, neighborhood understand this garden better. So I think this is, you know, very sensitive, and appreciate your thought and care for the gardens.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? If not, would someone like to put forward a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
The motion is to approve the 4 pedestal as presented. Share with staff more information on the ground cover and the color of the granite stone.
We have a motion with some conditions. Do we have a second?
This is Alan, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Dreyer. So we have motion and second. Any further discussion? Right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for your endorsement.
Thank you. We look forward to the improvements. Move on to our last applicant, the Turkish Garden, located at 780 East Boulevard, new garden master plan and phase 2 review. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function, open your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project?
Okay. Yes, I would like to, but I can't.
Is there anyone here for the Turkish Garden?
Yes, Burj Shakarian is here. Burj, I believe you're muted right now.
And Mehmet Genzer is here as well. He's our delegate from the Turkish Garden.
Can you hear now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Please tell us about your project.
Yes. Maybe you can go to the next slide. Go please. Forward, please. Forward, please. Forward, please. Forward. One more. Okay. We are pleased to share this endeavor with you to create a civic place that celebrates Turkish identity. That is to depict the Turkish women's suffrage of 5 December 1934 the essence of the ideals of the Turkish Republic that was established in 1923 as the successor state of the Ottoman Empire. In this regard, the design illustrates the tulip, which is native to Turkey and embodies the Turkish culture. In fact, many cultivated varieties were grown in Turkey long before they were introduced to the European gardens. It was in mid-17th century that overgrown interest and high popularity of tulips, the sort of tulip mania in conservative Holland. The period in Turkish history between 1618 to 1730 is called the Tulip era, under the reign of Sultan Ahmed III. The period was defined as a year of peace and enjoyment. Tulips became an important style of life within the arts and daily life and folklore. Many embroidery and textile clothing and carpets, handmade, tiles, miniatures, etc., had tulip designs of shapes. Large tulip gardens around the Golden Horn were dedicated as gardens of pleasure. This tradition continues today in Istanbul with the annual Tulip Festival. The overall concept of the plan is to show the historical transition of Turkey from imperial times to republican times. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the republic, is portrayed in the sculptural assembly with two children learning the Latinized alphabet and two women voting, celebrating the Turkish women's suffrage. This will be a fine opportunity to both increase awareness of cultural heritage as American and to create a wonderful teaching moment for the community at large. Set in Rockefeller Park between Lake Erie and University Circle, the gardens include sculpture and memorials representing more than 30 nationalities. It is a landmark with a cosmopolitan reputation that promotes understanding. The design basically, if you look at it, there is an oval which is the of the sculptural assembly that has been acquired, will be acquired by the owner to be placed there from an artist in Toronto, Canada. They are working on it, and I have some images done of the sculptural assembly of how it will look. In accordance with that, you have the three-dimensional crescent with the star, and down below you can see the giant-sized tulip on par as a urban structural element with the vivid colors of red and green. Basically, it's concrete covered with an acrylic emulsion that is used on outdoor playground, basketball courts, tennis courts. The product is manufactured by Sportmasters. And it has basically a lifespan of 15 years. Then you have to record it. The rest of the elements are all concrete, and the ellipse is done in a color concrete. And basically, that's the whole nature. The original installation, which was phase one, was the sidewalk that they put in when they acquired the garden. You can go back to the title page, Don, so that you can see the 3D model. So basically, that's the actual model. The stock of the street, as you can see, is part of one.
Excellent, thank you. And then phase two is everything else, correct?
What's
phase two is then everything else beyond the sidewalk that we're reviewing and talking about today. Well, Burge, I think we lost you.
Is basically everything else besides the sidewalk that goes along the street.
Excellent, thank you. That's perfect, thank you. Ms. Ashik, do you have feedback from the cultural gardens?
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Yes, the feedback I have is that the board also has approved this plan and we support we support the project.
Excellent, thank you. We'll open up the floor then to the questions and comments from the commission. Mr. Pettit?
I just have a couple comments. I just wanted to tell the commission that we approved the original plan for the garden in 2013. We also approved phase 1 in 2016, but that original master plan has completely changed. And so what we're looking at today is the current plan for the garden. And Carl, if you can move the slideshow ahead, we do have the images of the sculptural pieces that are proposed for the plaza.
This is what you're referencing, Don? Okay, so those are the sculptural pieces. That's very helpful. Could you go to 3D? Right there. I think that's helpful too to see. So there's 3 sculptures that are proposed for this area.
Five. This is Mehmet Gencer. I'm the president of the project. We will have 5 sculptures. There will be 2 women. They're voting. And Mustafa Kemal Atatürk is the founder of Turkish Republic. And in 1934, he's the one actually ended women's suffrage. And he's looking, and then 2 ladies, one with Western dress and the other one with the Anatolian local dress, in line voting, and 2 children, a boy and a girl, observing. And also on the crescent that you will see the current Turkish alphabet. That was another major thing happened. So it's an alphabet with 29 letters.
Thank you. That helps me. I didn't understand that, so thank you for explaining that. Questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Bailey? Ms. Bailey, if you're speaking, you're muted.
What are we voting on today?
I believe we're voting on the revised design, which includes the sculpture, the stairs, and the tulip installation art piece also. Is that correct, Don?
That's correct, as I understand the project.
Yes.
So the colorful items, the tulips and the purple sculpture and the empire, those are building stones. They're not plants or anything or landscape, correct? So I need to have more description on how the tulip is made. I understand the purple area. I saw how that's structured, and I saw how the stairs are structured. I'm still trying to figure out the tulip. I'm not. Is that landscape or is that planter or pavers?
Are you answering, Berge?
I see it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to get understanding.
Birch, could you give
The
us a,
tulip is a symbol of Turkey, of historical Turkey. That's the whole idea.
I think the answer to your question, Miss Bailey, it's not a landscape. Landscape is going to be around it, but that's a certain material, concrete-like material that one can walk on it, and actually, but one can step on the leaves of the tulip. So it's a long promenade.
Can we go back to the site plan? Let's see. Yeah.
And the purple color is just to differentiate the colors just to look. And that purple color is not going to be purple. It's going to be much lighter color. Berge, are you on?
And that's concrete.
Yeah, it is. It's concrete, and then
yes,
it is not going to be purple color. If anything, it will be very light.
Finalizing the color of the lip. The color. And as final color, we will check. We don't have the color for the lips. That would be done color concrete.
okay. Does that answer your question, Ms. Bailey?
It was static in background. I couldn't hear the answer.
I think what Bruce said was that the purple area will be a colored concrete. And then the tulip is a concrete with a coating that is used in different playgrounds to achieve that direct color, though. Is that correct?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I put up the material here. It's on this slide.
Yes.
That will help.
So zoom into that, and then that will answer our questions.
And what about the material at the end opposite of the purple? Is that also concrete? The where's gray and pebbles? What color, what materials that? Is it paper, sidewalk?
Berge?
Are you referring to the tulip?
Okay. The steps going to the stage area. Okay, I'll answer it. It's going to be just
great.
And that's flat. Is that flat or elevated?
Yes,
don't understand you.
it is elevated. You can see the elevation. It's elevated, and then the steps are going first starting flat, and then it is climbing up to the, I'm calling it a staging area. That is the elliptic area where the crescent and star is, and then the statues will be put on.
So in effect, it is the platform, it's
All
the
right.
stage.
Carl, go back to
Where
the
the whole-
site plan, the larger one.
Ms. Bailey, I think Burge is trying to answer your question. Go ahead, Burge.
The ellipse basically is the stage.
All right,
where
thank you.
things Happening, that's where the structure goes, the whole assembly, and that's basically the pedestal thing. So it represents the ideal, tulip represents the historic.
I think what Ms. Bailey was trying to understand, trying to read between the question and the comment is the ellipse raised above grade, or is it flush with grade? Your stairs are extending you from the grade of the road up to the grade of the ellipse.
The grade follows the total side. The ellipse follows the topo of the existing site.
So it will be.
It follows topography.
Got it. But the ellipse is then flattens in a
go from
plateau.
The street, the topography gets higher. Yes, exactly.
So the stairs transitions from the change in topography from the road up to the elevation of the ellipse, which will be at grade at that location, correct?
Shallow, like risers.
Okay. Mr. Dreyer, you had some additional questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. Well, on those stairs, I'm just concerned about ADA accessibility to that ellipse. So that's one thing that I just don't know about. This is a very colorful solution, and the most of the gardens don't have the big colors that this one does. So I'm trying to sort of get my arms around that. On the ellipse, the crescent, while I think making it kind of a spiral is very attractive, my concern is that to someone like me who doesn't know the Turkish culture, you might not understand that that's a crescent and a star. So, and I don't have a good solution for that, but I just wonder about that. I think the tulip, I mean, I like the addition of the tulip. It's just the color that I'm trying to get my arms around, and I think perhaps having it looks to me like there's a lot of color here, and it may be better to only maybe only have the elliptical portion in a bright color like that, and maybe try to figure out a different approach for the tulip. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a great addition to the gardens, so these enhancements to the Turkish gardens. I appreciate that we want to honor women's suffrage and Ataturk, that he brought Turkey into the modern era. My concern is regarding these sculptures. And I brought this up with a previous applicant. This was, I think, 2019, and they were adding some enhancements to their cultural gardens. And my concern is the quality of the sculptures. They seem a bit stiff and stilted to me. They almost are inhabiting a netherworld between sort of an abstraction of a figurative work and all out realistic human forms. So I'm just very ill at ease with these sculptures. I hope I can articulate this. I'm trying to do as well as I can. I years ago I briefly worked for a sculptor, and I'm trying to conjure how he would critique these, and they just seem stilted. They just seem these forms seem very stiff and not very animated or lifelike to me. So that's, I feel like they should be addressed. I really am very uncomfortable with the way they are now. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted myself. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Benezzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my first is to echo fellow member and Ms. Anderson's comment that the addition to the gardens and celebrating this cultural heritage of women's suffrage is, and I agree, a very important addition to the gardens. However, I would like to build upon our fellow member, Mr. Dreyer's comment, which is about the colors of the concrete, particularly seeing what these stains. I was reading on the architectural detail notes that it is a stained concrete with a Sherwin-Williams color. So seeing a sample of what that would be instead of just this kind of like block of color would be very helpful in kind of making this determination. And then the second concern is, as Mr. Dreyer said, the ADA accessibility, not only just of getting up to the what's here is the purple block, but also the tulips being on multiple levels. And if you had just considered as maybe making those a flat sidewalk with then maybe like a relief in the concrete so you can still read the tulip petals without so much saying in section having to push and pull the concrete. And then my third and final concern would be about the star and the crescent moon. And we need them. You know, they are the symbol of Turkey, but my concern is as concrete. Really working out the detail and the material. Concrete does not like to be in a very thin, pointy types of situations. And so I think that's a concern of mine is for the longevity of this in the gardens, right? Being outdoors, being exposed to weather. You know, is it a year from now, are those corners going to just snap off or are they going to degrade? I think those are my three really big concerns with the project overall.
Jonathan, if I may address your concern with regard to the crescent. The crescent and the star are going to be created in precast concrete in a white finish so that the colors remain permanent.
Okay.
Points, yes, we get concerned about that. The corners are going to be filet. So they are radius corners. They are not sharp corners as the drawing is showing. So when the precast guy create the sharp points, those corners are going to be they're not going to be pointed corners.
Okay, perfect. That addresses that concern.
As far as the accessibility, if you look on drawing, there is another drawing. Another this one. If you go back, please. Go back here. As you see, there's a curved line from the top of to the ellipse. Point where the walkway goes there. If the height between the point of the top ellipse is only 1 foot. That's how the grade comes. In effect, that walkway is going to be less then it's going to be more than 20, which means you don't have railing. You just can wheel yourself up.
Yes.
Okay.
No, and that's
So
partly
that's the
just-
bypass that you can see there.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you for pointing that out.
The difference in
that
grade
walkway
between
being-
that point top of the it's only 12 inches.
Okay. Yes, thank
Well-
you for pointing out that concern. I think it was just a misrepresentation in reading the drawings that kind of brought up that concern.
And as
But thank
far
you for.
as your concern was the color.
Seeing the samples of how these stains would actually be as a material palette and submitting that to staff, just so that they can make the determination would be my recommendation, is to really see what these stains are going to look like on the concrete.
As far as the ellipse, the color has not been settled on that. It's going to be a color concrete. The others, that is the Turkish art people, have concern about the color. They would rather something more neutral for the base. And we will be researching that some more as far as and meaning. But as far as the color of the tulips, the red, the green, those are the colors that are going to be in reality. I mean, the bright red is a standard color emulsion. The gray is a standard emulsion. It's an acrylic emulsion that is applied on asphalt or concrete. As a matter of fact, if you go to Lakewood, the city has created the crosswalks and the bicycle path on Lake Avenue, and you can see the green covered that are covered in this material.
So did you, I appreciate that, and that's a helpful reference, because I think that does help solidify what material you're thinking of. Right now, this is a very literal application in master plan and with the materials proposed for your final installation. But as Mr. Dreyer mentioned, the majority of the cultural gardens are often made out of the stone from the home origin of each cultural garden. Knowing that you're looking at concrete, I would encourage you, if you haven't, to look at maybe an exposed aggregate concrete and look at maybe the opportunity to incorporate your color in the aggregate, either through it can be granite, it can be red stones, it could be different materials that will give you the durability, for this great investment that you're making. My concern is 10 years down the road that, the color green starts to wear away, or the red, and it doesn't maintain that longevity that you're looking for with this installation. So I would encourage you to look at some alternate materials like an exposed aggregate that maybe could achieve the red hue of the flower and the green hue of the stem, but really hold up for the life that you want this installation to live. So I'm just concerned this an additive element will wear away over time, where an integral element or color will maintain throughout the full life of the installation.
We have
And
researched.
Giancarlo was here, he could speak more eloquently about the different options of, granites and marbles that could give you that color, because he is very educated in this by his profession.
We have researched material, and the emulsion, the acrylic emulsion, which is a lifespan of 15 years, even then it doesn't break. It's used in Olympic settings. It's used on outdoor playgrounds and tennis courts. And even in 15 years, when it wears out, you simply apply it. you know.
And I appreciate that, but I think, you know, in the setting of the cultural gardens, I don't know if that's as fitting, you know, based on, you know, how and what materials are used in the other gardens. I think, you know, a more subtle material could achieve what you want with this installation, and, you know, work better with the overall composition of the gardens.
One of the problems that the current gardens have is they are too chromatic. The whole idea of not being in a cemetery, we want to add some color to this environment. I mean, you have to think of like what Gaudi did in Barcelona to add color to the environment. And I think this would be an excuse to add color to a monochromatic environment. And not only that, its location along the side street there, it would be a beautiful addition right behind the Cleveland Greenhouse. And I think color in an environment, it's very important.
And I think color could be a wonderful addition. I just am not 100% on board with the material that you are proposing to apply that color. So that's where I'm trying to give you my opinion of maybe an alternate material that could achieve that color addition, but integrate better with the overall cultural gardens. But that's, I guess, my opinion. Mr. Benezzi, did you have additional questions?
Chair, I wanted to echo your comments and also give some reasoning so that it is not purely opinion, which is that the cultural gardens were intentionally designed under something called the picturesque, which was about creating a natural landscape that is controlled, but still ultimately resembles the natural landscape. And in nature, finding very vibrant colors is very difficult. You know, plants and rocks and things of these nature are not like these synthetic materials, these acrylic additives and these emulsions that are very bright. And though I do agree that it can seem monochromatic in the application of all these different gardens, that there's no pops of color, I would also like to echo that it is the architectural intent of cultural gardens to kind of be a construction of the natural landscape and a celebration of nature, but in a very subtle way that also, you know, calls back to these different, you know, cultures and places and times. So I would agree with Madam Chair Trop that you should research different material options that can give you the same aesthetic implications while also acknowledging what it means to be a part of a cultural garden in this kind of picturesque landscape.
And also, you have to, I mean, this is Ohio and Cleveland with cold weather. Yes, concrete, sometimes you have to look at material and how it affects and how long it lasts in cold weather. Sometimes, you know, all material does not hold up longevity in cold weather. So that's another thing you have to look at as well. I don't need to tell you that. You already know that in your research. Concrete is always something that does not last long in cold weather. And it's hard to replace. Sometimes you have to tear it down.
Excellent. Thanks for that addition, Ms. Bailey. Mr. Pettit, you have your hand up too?
Madam Chairman,
yes.
Your point that you make, we consider, and if we have to various concrete finishes, such as sandblasting or exposed aggregate, we will touch base with Don Pettit before doing construction or anything like that. You know, to the point where maybe we can use integral colors and take it from there.
I think Giancarlo would be a great resource to you that could also maybe expose you to some additional materials.
I would love to meet with Giancarlo to go through this whole thing. I mean, you can look at this and I would love to meet with him to explain to him the situation and see what he has to say. And I will abide by his judgment. Would that be fair?
I think that's would be a wonderful compromise. We can see if we can, continue through these comments and get to a motion that we
Yes.
could consider that.
I'd love to meet with Don. And Don, you can give me his contact information and I will get in touch with him.
Yes, thank you, Burge. I just want to echo all the concerns with the materials of the tulip. I think color is great. I like the design of this garden, but I'd have to be convinced that concrete emulsion is an appropriate solution for the gardens. And I think you all said it more eloquently than I can. There's also no landscape plan here. And I'm just concerned that, and I'm just concerned that you're missing an opportunity. I think you're just missing an opportunity to plant some tulips here. That's my only point. Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Could you please go to that natural picture? Let's go. Okay. Can you? We already have tulip garden there. Initially, we put 2,500 tulips. If you look at the left top corner, actually the entire row, and this is today. Actually, if you go now, you will still see the red tulips. I think they are in their last leg, so to speak, But we have red tulips, and we are waiting for this creation of tulip to stay throughout the seasons, and the landscape is going to have a lot of these tulips will be removed, and then will be planted around the tulips. When the tulip time comes, like today or last week, that tulip is going to be embedded with the natural tulips. But the rest of the time, since the colors are red and white, there will be landscaping all around the garden to make the gardens like gardens. So that was number one reason why we moved away from the very original plan. It was just loaded with a lot of things. And this garden has nice space. It will be totally nice flower garden with the roses. And if you go today, the red and white color is dominated by tulips and daffodils, white daffodils. You will see daffodils everywhere under the trees. So we keep getting comments how nice it looks today. But then with the addition of that, I don't know what to call it, but then I call the marvelous creation of Burge, that tulip. I think it's going to add in Ohio a beautiful things for people to come to see. And I agree with you, Don. There will be a lot of landscaping, but we are just waiting to put these structures together. Then we make this garden to be something that we can all be proud of.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
So I guess we're at a point that I think the commission has expressed that we're all on board with your master plan. But there are a few details I think we do need to work through. And I don't know if the commission would feel comfortable approving it without better understanding what the final materials are. So I would just ask the commission I think we're now starting to repeat some of our comments. So either we put forward a motion to table this, but we would need your approval and allow us some time to work through the details of the materials. Just why don't you wait 1 second, Burge? Let me just finish my statement and then you can comment. We could either table this and allow you, Burge, to explore some alternate materials for the tulip and the ellipse to achieve your colors, but achieve our request to have them more integral than applied. Or we can move forward, and also a landscape plan. I don't see it in here, so maybe Carl, could you go through the slides one more time to see if maybe we missed it?
It's submitted a landscaping plan, but I don't know what happened with that.
And if it was submitted after the deadline, sometimes it doesn't make the slides. So that might be it too.
It should be with an L.
So you have a lot of great detail. Is that it right there? Back one, two, Carl. Right there.
Correct. Yes, the landscape plan. And there is the landscaping schedule.
Okay. So you're proposing tulips and daffodils to line the two sides of the stairs, myrtle to be located near the stem, tulip stem promenade, and did I miss something? I'm not seeing the daffodil tulips.
And it's the mixing of the tulips.
So I think, this is helpful, similar to what was presented in the last presentation. I'd be a little concerned about your, well, I guess if it's not great, it's not that much of a concern, but I guess it is a concern that if the tulip is at grade and some of these, fine corners of the concrete, I would be afraid that the lawn care equipment might also damage your coating, and if they're trying to mow right up to the petals and stems of the tulip. So I think this is helpful, and but the one question I'd have is, do you want any additional landscape? That the tulips are beautiful, and I think they'll be wonderful in the spring, but for the remaining 8-10 months of the year, is this just going to be grass all around it? So I would encourage you to think about that and see if you want any additional, more permanent landscape around here, knowing the ability for the Cultural Gardens, lawn care group to work around more integral, intimate stuff.
Actually, within the tulip bed, have included daffodils, which causes a change. I mean, you can look on the plant material and you can see that we have combined the beds.
And I think that'll be wonderful in spring. My question is for the other months of the year. Right now, it just says tulips and daffodils, which are both spring, annuals or perennials.
Well, what we are also doing, we are including myrtle ground cover at all flowering beds. Julie?
Yes.
We are including
Go ahead.
myrtle at all flowering beds. So in that way, you always have a green surface.
I think that it will help immensely, and I would encourage you to increase it around all sides of it, because right now I see that addition near the tulip stem promenade, but you might want to encompass those tips of the tulips so that stems, so they don't get damaged. So I would ask the commission again, if someone, or I should say, are there additional, I'm sorry, I missed the additional comments. Mr. Benezzi.
That's my apology, Madam Chair. I left my hand up. I didn't
No
see the
problem.
button.
No problem. Ms. Anderson, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'll make it brief. I think that it would probably be a good idea to table this, and perhaps we can come back to this project when Giancarlo is at the meeting. I think his input would be very helpful. I also wanted to make a little aside note. I think that, maybe some sort of possibly ceramic tile, mosaic tile, something on there, or even terrazzo might add some color to the project, but we can get away from the, colored concrete. I think that would be good. Those are my comments.
That's a great suggestion also.
Madam Chair, does this
Yes, Ms.
also
Bailey.
take the sculpture or the sculpture separate?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? I missed what you said.
Is tabling including the sculpture or is that separate?
I think it would be for the whole project would be my recommendation.
I feel the same way.
So Ian, asking version, I'm sorry, I just went past the other, Mr. Eltis, did I say that right? Engine, that I think, as I just mentioned, I think we're in the commission, or I should say, the commission is in support of your overall design and the master plan change that you've made here. But I do think we need more time and more details on the materials that, or more thought about the materials that you're proposing to achieve the color. I think the commission is on board with providing some additional color versus this very muted natural stones and granites that are in the park. We're open to that, but the materials you're proposing are not aligned with the goals for the garden. So we would recommend tabling this, but we do need your approval to do that so that you can study that a little bit more. We will offer on behalf of Giancarlo, who is not here, that maybe we could have a meeting with him to talk about some alternate materials, because he's very astute with the natural materials that may be appropriate for your installation.
Could we meet with Giancarlo before the next meeting so that we can be on the same page?
We would recommend that. And then, when you're ready, if it's the next meeting in 2 weeks or the following meeting in 4, we could then bring you back, put you on the agenda and vote at that time. But I think if we are asked to vote now, you're not going to achieve the results you would like. So with that,
Would you approve it conditionally based on Giancarlo's meeting?
I think when I hearing, please speak up from the commission so that if you disagree, anyone on the commission, is that?
Report to you his finding. Would you trust him to make the decision?
I will open it up to the commission for thoughts on that request.
I'm happy to have Giancarlo review it and make his recommendation. And based on his recommendation, we will abide by that.
Are there commission members that are open to that, or would they prefer the whole thing to be tabled at this time?
Madam Chair, I'm uncomfortable with not tabling it, I guess.
Okay, so Mr. Dreyer, Ms. Anderson, you favored?
I favor tabling. I think this should come back to the commission. I think there are many things that still need to be discussed and worked out here.
Ms. Bailey, thoughts?
Table it. It's more detail needs to be discussed.
Mr. Dreyer, I'm sorry, you would just comment, Mr. Dreyer, Mr. Pettit?
Well, I would agree, even if all this went to staff or to a subcommittee of Giancarlo, I would still want to bring this back to the commission. So I think tabling is the better way to go. We can't put this on the next agenda. Our next agenda is too full, so that we would have to move this to the June meeting, just so the applicant's aware of that.
But once again, I think it is your choice. We are in support of your project, but we just need more detail or more exploration regarding, the materials. So it's your choice to allow us to table this, or we can move forward with a vote. But as I mentioned, I don't think you will be happy with that decision.
I think we will table it. I think that's all the questions and comments and concerns I so far heard. I think we should table it. But then one thing that I like some clarification on the statues, on the sculptures. I mean, the whole idea is to bring life the women's suffrage. And we looked into this, and I don't think nationally even we have anywhere women's suffrage in US is represented. And I thought, and we thought as a whole group, this would be wonderful because cultural gardens giving a lot of messages, as much as them being gardens from the Cultural Garden Federation viewpoint, we really like to give cultural messages. And one of the major cultural message from Turkey after the down of Ottoman Empire, coming up with the new republic, Democratic Republic in 1923. Not many years later, Atatürk managed to have the revolution of giving women to be elected and to vote, and that was incredible. So we thought this would be a good message from the new Turkey, if we call it a new nation from 1923. I mean, if we have some questions about that, I think we would like to know before that meeting, because some of the things I heard here, the stillness about the sculptures, actually the whole idea was to make it more animated, then anybody can see that women are voting and the children are learning. And then Turkey, yes, Turkey does not have Arabic scripture. Everybody thinks, yes, Atatürk made it to look Western and then brought alphabet, very regular language to read and write. And I think there are incredible messages there to give to young people, for them to learn what women's suffrage is all about, for them to search. Even in my case, when we were putting this thing together, when I looked at the dates that other Western nations have the woman eligible to vote or elected, it is just astonishing.
I think we
So-
support what you're trying to achieve here and recognition of women's suffrage and everything that you're trying to achieve with this. I think we are fully in support of that as a commission, but maybe the execution of your sculptures might want to be tweaked some so that you do get the interpretation and the recognition that you deserve by doing this work. And I think Giancarlo can be a great resource related to that also, since he is a sculptor, to help you achieve, what you really want and, elicit the response that you want. Because I think this is a great recognition that you're doing here, but the execution of it, I think just needs to be massaged a little bit also, is what I heard from the commission.
Okay, that's what I like to hear. That's good.
He's your man that will help with some of that. So
we will make it happen. Yeah, we'll make it happen.
So with your approval, I'd like to suggest that a commission member makes. Oh, yes. Was that Miss Bailey? Somebody just said my name.
Has it been approved for us to move for the table it?
Yes, the owner just gave us their permission to table it.
I'm willing to make a motion. And if Mr. Burek is online, I have a question for him.
Mr. Burek was related to the last project.
In regards to the cultural garden.
Okay.
Overall. But I'll make a motion first. the motion is to table, the, applicant, for now.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
This is Michelle Anderson. I will second.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? No? All right. Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasek,
Yes.
Ms. Trot.
Yes.
The motion to table passes.
So as we
I
mentioned, I
see.
think we're in support of the project, and we would recommend having an offline meeting with Giancarlo. I'm sure Don can supply you with his contact information. Typically he's here but wasn't able to make this meeting. I think he can help make that connection from your ultimate goals of the installation and our requests regarding the application and the execution.
Thank you. I think
Yeah.
all comments, all concerns and questions were incredibly good, very constructive. And thank you for the time, and thank you for paying a lot of attention and giving us all those suggestions. We'll do. And then we'll
Thank you very
we'll
much.
come back to you.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing you come back to us.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks. So we do not have any concept plans on our agenda today. Do we have any administrative reports?
I just want to let the commission know that on Monday, 4 of our members were reappointed by the mayor for the next 4 years, and those appointments, including Mr. Bonezzi's appointment to join the commission, will be official on Monday, so he will be able to vote at our next meeting. So
Could you please,
yeah.
Don?
I'm sorry? Yes, Burge. Burge, I can catch up with you later. The only other piece of business we have today is to say goodbye to Mr. Stuart Hastings, who is leaving the city to take a position as the law director in the city of Beechwood. I know I'll miss him. He served the commission well. I'm not sure how long. It seems like 8 or 10 years, but maybe he can clarify that. But I just want to say that we wish him well and thank him and wish him luck in Beechwood.
Thank you, Don. I think it is 9 or 10 years. So.
Well, Stuart, we appreciate all your time with this and always providing us the guidance when we need it to maintain, our alignment with the rules and regulations. So thank you for all your hard work through the years. I know as we were talking, I think it's been, would have been 8 years that I've been on it, and you've been on it for the whole time. So it's been at least 8 years since you've been here. So thank you for all your time and insight. It's been truly helpful, and good luck in your next adventure.
Thank you. My history major in college, a subject I love, was fed by the Landmarks Commission, and I actually enjoyed every meeting tremendously.
Well, you'll be missed. So good luck, though.
Thank you. I might need it.
Good luck.
Thank you, Stu.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Don? Any other administrative?
That's all I have.
Carl, anything from your side?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
All right.
And Julie, I hope you'll be at the meeting this afternoon at 3:30.
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, I have to rearrange something, but I will be there.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. With that, we will adjourn today's meeting and we'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
Hey, bye,
Great.
take care.
All right. Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you
Take care,
all.
everyone.
Take care.